Today, for the very first time, I'm going to be listening to the brand new Lights album, PEP. And also for the first time, I have someone here to listen along with me.
That's me.
It's all the same every day, always catching my breath. Trying to stay in a lane, but keep failing the test.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on my channel. As I said in the intro, I'm so excited because, Chris, you are here with me.
I am, yes.
So for those of you who are seeing a video on my channel for the first time, what we're going to be doing here is a little bit different than what I normally do, but it's going to kind of be the same general structure of everything. We're going to talk a little bit beforehand about Lights and how special and important she is to us, which she really is. And then we're going to go into listening to the actual album. And normally I would put the CD in my CD player, listen all the way through without stopping it. But I think this time, because Chris is here, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to a song and then maybe discuss the song a little bit, then listen to the next song, discuss a little bit. We'll try to do all of this in a manageable amount of time. And then after we're done listening to the entire album, we'll go through at the end and give our overview or our final thoughts, and that will be sort of the review section. And like I said, we'll try to make all of this as time manageable, as to manage our time as much as possible, because I do not want this video to be 3 hours long, Chris. No, I think we can do it.
I have so much to do.
We can do it in 2 hours. I'm pretty sure. Now that depends how long the album is too. I haven't checked the actual length of the album.
Cutting out the hour and 15 minutes it took to get started.
Very, very true.
43 minutes. 43 minutes is the album length, which is great.
Oh, okay. That's not bad, but it's still long enough that we'll get a good chunk of listening in. Mm-hmm. So before we get to any of that, though, I just have a couple things I want to mention. First thing is, in the description of this video, you will notice timestamps for all those sections that I just mentioned. So if you wanted to skip anywhere in the video, feel free to do that. If you want to skip everything basically and just head to the end of the video to hear our review, that's totally cool. And I'm also going to include timestamps for each of the individual songs. So if you have a favorite track on this album, go ahead and skip to that timestamp and you'll be able to hear that. Also, I have to mention, I think that this should work with Lights. However, the last few videos that I've been uploading to my channel, I've actually included the audio from the album in the video itself, and that is my plan with this video. So hopefully you watching this video will be able to listen along with Chris and I to the album. I'm going to put the actual songs in the video. However, when I did this recently with my Casey Musgraves album reaction from her album that came out last year, every single song got copyrighted in such a way that the video was unable to be seen in any country on Earth. So I'm going to try to include the songs, but if for some reason Lights or the people who own the copyright to her songs, which she is on, her record label now is Fueled by Ramen, which is an offset of Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers is a bigger thing, but Fueled by Ramen has a lot more indie artists and stuff on it. So I would assume we'll be okay. But just to let you know, if you're listening to if you're watching the video and you're not hearing the audio, it's because of copyright issues. But I'm going to try to upload it with the audio. So just bear with me with whatever happens there. Also, Chris, since we're here at the beginning of the video, do you have anything you would like to plug for your own stuff or to just kind of say who you are?
I'm a video game sound designer by trade. I don't have anything going on right now that I can plug. We did a trailer reveal for Wizard with a Gun back at E3 last year, and that was very popular. And I got 2 other games I'm working on right now that don't have announcements yet. And that's it. My public-facing wares are very, very thin.
Yeah,
at the moment.
And for people who know me personally, or even that we're watching this that know you personally, they may know that you and I had a music podcast that we had for a little while called The Music Room, that we're still active on a little bit on Facebook, but for the most part, it's just posting.
I haven't touched it.
It's just like posting stuff occasionally, but
yeah, and it does. The website still works, and I'm pretty sure all the episodes still work. So go enjoy that if you want.
I think some of them work. I'm not sure if all of them do.
Some of them work. Some of them.
But regardless, we had a podcast called The Music Room Podcast. You can check it out at www.musicroompodcast.com. And but what we did was we would get together and we would talk about music and different things, and we would sort of play examples for each other of the different sort of topic we had for that episode. And so I think this is going to be a little bit like that, because one thing we have to mention right up front is that, Chris, you have heard the Lights album.
I have.
But yes, I have not heard it.
My sister came to town last weekend because Lights was here live on the 4th. And so we basically fired it up right when it dropped. I know that you and I had hoped to be able to do this with a reaction from both of us at the first time, but the timing didn't work out.
Yeah.
And I have plenty of things to say.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the other things too. Like, I wanted to do this video as soon as I could after the album was released 2 weeks ago, almost at this point. But it ended up waiting. I ended up waiting until this day for us to do this together. So I personally have not heard a second of any of this music. I have not heard a single. I have not watched a video. I have heard nothing, not even like a little 30-second Facebook ad as I'm scrolling through or something. So I have no clue what this is going to sound like, and we'll get to that all in a second. But first, I forgot, there was one other thing I wanted to mention real quick. I normally don't have things to plug because all the stuff I do is just here on my channel. But for those of you watching who don't know, I have been working with a Harry Potter website called MuggleNet, Harry Potter fan site called MuggleNet for 10 years now. And one of the podcasts that I work for with them called Aloha Mora is actually going to be releasing our book very soon. So this is actually an advanced copy of our book. This comes out on April 19th. And I don't know exactly when this video is going to be posted, but I'm going to try to get it posted before next week, which, for the sake of clarity, we are recording this on, I believe, the 13th or the 14th?
14th,
The 14th. So this book comes out next week. But I have my advanced copy here so I could look in it and stuff. And well, I can't talk about certain things, but there's other reasons I have my copy. But so I just wanted to shout this out and say, if anybody is interested in Harry Potter and you're a fan of the books, if it's been a while since you've read the books, or if you read the books all the time and consume Harry Potter fandom stuff all the time, then this book is probably for you. This book is going to be sold almost everywhere that books are going to be sold. I think you can find them in like grocery stores, Walmarts, wherever. I live in the middle of Nebraska, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to find this in my local Walmart when it's released next week. So if you're into Harry Potter, check this out. It's a companion book that goes along with the very first Harry Potter book. So just Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. However, there are spoilers for the entire series through this book, so don't get this if you're reading the series for the first time. But check it out. You can go to unofficialharrypottercompanion.com to find all the necessary links, read parts of the book, and all sorts of good stuff there. So go ahead and do that if you are a Harry Potter fan. Okay, now one thing I want to do, Chris, is, like we just said, you have heard the album, but I have not. Well, actually, before we do that, let's discuss our sort of history with Lights and how we feel about her back catalog a little bit.
Oh, sure.
So I have with me right here all of the Lights albums that I own, which is all of her major albums minus 2 acoustic ones, which are sort of the shame of my collection because one of them is one of my, in my opinion, maybe her best album overall.
Oh, wow.
But first, I just want to go through here real quick. This was her very first debut EP album. This is just called Lights. Has just 6 songs on it. It's really awesome. Sounds great. But 3 of the songs that are on here are on her debut album, which is called The Listening. This is from, I believe, 2009.
Yeah. Oh, 9.
So we're talking, 10 years ago-ish, 12 years ago. Then we have Siberia, which...
Yep, and that's where you... Is that where you started?
That's where I discovered her, yes.
Yeah, and I was as a result of you discovering her, so we're both...
We shared that.
Siberia
so Siberia
people.
was our first album with her. And actually these 2 older albums I happened to find used at a store in Omaha, Nebraska. So I really lucked out with these. Like only four, I think, this one was $5.99 and this one was in the 99-cent bin because it's only an EP. So great finds. Then I also have a CD copy of Siberia Acoustic, which is her first, I believe, like official release of an acoustic album. She does have acoustic versions of The Listening. However, I don't think she ever released those on like a physical disc.
She's got an acoustic EP just called Acoustic, and it's 5 songs from The Listening.
Yep.
And possibly 1 or 2 that.
Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, because like one of the Skin and Earth? No, Midnight Machines has at least 2 songs on it that are
not
bespoke for the acoustic album.
Yeah, and I think Skin and Earth Acoustic has 1 or 2 songs on it as well.
Cool.
So then we get to the album that you and I talked about to death on our podcast, Little Machines. And then we have, I do not have a copy on CD of Midnight Machines, and that was what I was referencing earlier. I think it goes back and forth with me, but I think actually Midnight Machines might be, in my opinion, her best work. I think it's
really, really good.
It is incredibly high sound quality and production, and I love the way it sounds from front to back. I absolutely love that stuff. And so, yeah, I think that might be her best album, but we can get to that in 1 second. Then I have a copy of Skin and Earth, which is her last full-length release. That was actually like all new material. And then after this one, she did release in CD format, I believe, and vinyl and everything. Skin and Earth Acoustic, which I actually just listened to for the first time the other day in its entirety. Because, it's funny. When she first released that, I saw that like all the songs were titled like Desert Version or like...
interesting.
Like nature version or whatever.
Yeah, rain recording, tunnel recording, river recording.
And so when I first started listening to that album, the first song, if you start playing it, it sounds like she recorded it outside. And I was like, oh, this is a stupid idea. She recorded this tunnel version in a tunnel. She recorded the nature version in nature. She recorded this beach version by the beach. And so I listened to a couple samples and I was like, I don't need to listen to this. This was when she released it a couple years ago. And so the other day I was listening to it and I was like, oh, I'm so stupid. I should have known she would be smart enough to not do that. The songs all have little sound effects in them, but they are still well recorded, though definitely not as like thought out and produced as Midnight Machines, which on that album, all the acoustic songs have all sorts of different instruments. There's drums, very well recorded drums. There's bass on everything. And Skin and Bones acoustic is actually much closer to a Siberia acoustic. They're very... Skin and Earth, sorry. I keep thinking Skull and Bones, which is Cypress Hill. Because Cypress Hill actually had a new album come out a couple of weeks ago that I need to go back and listen to.
Yes, of course. The Constant Lights Cypress Hill confusion there.
Right. Shout out to So You Want to Be a Rock Superstar. But anyway, and then of course we have PEP. So this is what we're going to be listening today. But so one thing I wanted to make sure that we talked about real quick here at the beginning, Chris, is back when we were doing the music room, I really made it a point to be like, Siberia is Light's best album. And we talked about it a lot because I think you thought at the time, at least, that Little Machines was her best album.
Yeah.
And I have to say now, with retrospective, having her entire catalog and having listened to everything, I want to totally change what I said and agree with you. I think Little Machines is Light's best album. I think it is like really close to being like a masterpiece album from front to back. Like there's so much variety. The production is great. And the production is actually quite different from song to song, though everything feels better. But at the same time,
I'm so interested for what you're going to say after you hear this one.
What I was going to say is at the same time, though, I think that Little Machines is her most consistent album. And I say that because all of the songs they like border sort of on like synthwave feeling, and they're still pop songs, but there's a lot of synths. There's a lot of like lead instruments and melodies and things being played on the instruments. Whereas Siberia was all about the production. The production of Siberia made the character of that album. It is so distorted. Everything is so
very distorted. It's really distinct. She doesn't use any of that same sounds on any of the albums after that.
And it came out in 2012, which was the height of like dubstep. So there are like several songs on Siberia that have like flux and flow and stuff that have these like sweet oscillating synth basses that are these huge feeling songs that actually sound heavy, I would say. Whereas I don't think there's like a single heavy moment on really any of her other albums. So that was why I think Siberia appealed to me more at the time. Plus, I think that it just was it still is so unique sounding, not even just in her catalog, but just like in general.
It is very unique sounding
album. I really do think it's a fantastic album from front to back, and I don't think there are any weak songs on it, but I do think that the extra production, the extra dynamic range, and the songwriting and her vocal performance just like sort of make Little Machines that much better, I think. So,
and one thing, as I was going through her whole catalog over the last couple of weeks, I discovered how much Siberia sounds like The Listening in a way I'd never considered before. Like, The Listening is a very immature album, not in a way that is necessarily a negative, like a derogatory statement, but like she was 19 when that album came out. Like it feels very.
If you look at all the reviews on Amazon, everyone just calls her Valerie. Which is so funny. It's
That's
like
really funny.
Valerie. Who the
Valerie.
heck is Valerie? But everyone in the
Exactly.
comments are like, oh, Valerie's voice is so beautiful. It's so great. And now I don't even, now in the credits, her name is just listed as Lights. And then she has like a hyphenated name.
Yeah, I think her real actual like legal first name is now Lights.
Yeah, I think she changed it. I thought so as well, but I wasn't sure.
But yeah, and it was interesting to hear how much Siberia sounds like The Listening. It still has a very youthful sort of sound to it compared to Little Machines. There's a big jump there. But I also think that her music does such a great job of progressing in maturity every single album. Like you're going to hear a lot of stuff on this that's like complete reinvention type stuff, a new step up in what she does from the last album.
Which the last album being Skin and Bone, or Skin and Earth.
Skin and Earth, yes.
Which is the one that I feel like we could talk about the most, because when this came out, I remember us both being disappointed in it, only because we had such high expectations.
Right. Well, the problem was Little Machines gave her honestly nowhere to go but down. Like,
yeah.
Or at the very least, lateral move of excellence. And so I remember being kind of turned off by it. And it's one of those things that over time, that really subtle, nuanced sensation of this isn't quite as good as the last one took over and became like, I never listened to this. This album's bad.
Right.
And so, yeah. And so recently, as I was going back through her stuff, I was, it was on random and it just kept hitting Skin and Earth tracks. And I was like, God, this song is a banger too. There's so much good stuff on this album that I really did not give the right attention to because it just came off the heels of something so excellent.
Yeah.
But it's really, really strong. And hearing those songs live, man, oh man, there are some really good stuff. Her live show's killing it. She's so good.
Which I do want to talk about her live show but in a second. Before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit more about Skin and Earth because I also went back and was listening to this album a little bit more recently. And I think at one point I had mentioned to you that I think possibly she was a little bit distracted while making the album because she made a 6-issue comic book run.
That's true, yeah.
And she did all the artwork and wrote it and everything. It had been a story that she had been working on in her head since she was a teenager, and she made it into a reality. And it was it accompanies every track. If you'll notice on the back of the Skin and Earth CD, it says Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3 instead of Track 1, Track 2, Track 3.
Oh, sure.
Each one of these is there's 14 songs on Skin and Earth, and there are 6 issues, I believe, of the comic book, and every issue is split into 2 chapters, except for 2 of them, which each have an additional chapter, I believe. That's how the math works out. But regardless, it's a lot of work for her to have done this, and I remember at the time thinking, I wish she would have put all that effort into making the songs, because the thing to me that still bothers me about Skin and Earth, other than what is, I believe, objectionably very poor mastering, the album does not sound uniform throughout. And there are 2 songs on this album that distort in the bad way. That like the frequencies were so much building up that there was bad distortion. And I'm not talking about like black keys, like something sounds distorted on intentionally. Just like straight up, there's too much signal being put through the limiter or the compressor for it to handle, and it distorted in a bad way. And it's the slower songs on this album that do that. There's just so much muddy mid-range frequencies and low frequencies that it's too much for it to handle, and it distorts. And that to me is sort of like an unacceptable thing that should happen. Never. And she was still just on Warner Brothers records at the time, and she was still under her Lights Music, her own record label as well. And so that is sort of an unexcusable thing to me. And then you have certain things like one of my favorite songs on this album is Kicks. And it sounds like 5 dB louder than the song after it, which is Giants, which was one of the singles.
Well, and that's interesting because Giants is one of the biggest songs. Like not just like most popular, but it's a huge song. It
is huge in the chorus when it kicks in, but the hugeness of it still doesn't compare to because Kicks is a much less
dynamic song.
It's much less dynamic in that it's basically the same thing the whole time, just a drum beat and her singing, which at the end of the day, the point I was going to make was, and the reason we're talking about this is because it leads into my expectations for PEP. But this album was pretty much every song is pretty much just a drum beat and her singing. The lead instruments are basically gone. With a few exceptions are Giants, which you can definitely tell Giants and Savages were like the two songs that they were like, these are our singles. We're going to put more effort into this. And Savages especially has like a guitar riff is like the lead part of the song. Which as far as I know, since the listening, she hasn't had a guitar riff be the main. Well, that's not true. Running with the Boys on Little Machines was a guitar riff. That was like the lead part of the song. But Savages is great. Savages and Giants are like two of my favorite songs on the album, along with Kicks and When We Were Here. But the rest of the album like lacks the instrumentation that I feel like she's used before. And in that regard, to me, it sounds a little bit more like Siberia than Little Machines, because she used less instruments and then she sort of like focused on the vocals and the melody of the song, I think, a little bit more. And to me, that kind of says like they wrote the songs and then they went into the studio to make them, and they didn't necessarily put as much focus or effort into crafting the songs in the studio. And that might be where the
I wonder too. Like I really hesitate to ever say that any professional is not putting in the full amount of effort that they would ever put in.
Yeah, anything. And that's I mean, I don't mean it to be disrespectful.
Sure, for sure. But it makes me wonder, like, with the involvement, with the inclusion of the comic aspect of it, if it becomes a matter of, here's the comic, especially something that if it's been something she's wanted to do for a long time, here's the comic first, here's songs that I think are representative of each of the individual comics, instead of being written sort of as their own piece of something. And so it's like now they're being influenced and sort of directed down this path of, I need to make a song that matches this particular theme and what I'm trying to get out of this comic piece, versus just I'm making a song.
Right.
And this, I mean, I have an overwhelming amount of ignorance when it comes to knowing how songs are actually written and what the songwriting process is and how it's different for every single artist. But yeah, it's just an interesting thought I had while you were talking about that.
Well, I think I can't remember exactly, but in the back of each of these comics, they always have like a section where she talks about, like, there's like a, like how she drew stuff. And in this case, like in this specific issue, they talk about like how she came up with the clothing for each of the different characters and stuff. Cool. But there are other things in each one where she talks about the process of writing the songs. And I do think that it was a case of she had this story and everything figured out, and she was doing both simultaneously, because she does mention several times about meeting a deadline and having a hard time meeting the deadlines for the art. Because
okay, that's interesting.
It takes more. It's a different kind of inspiration to do artwork than it is to make music, especially for someone that's primarily a musician. And we know, because we've listened to her whole catalog, that she is a fantastic guitar player. She plays the acoustic guitar on her acoustic stuff, and it is very well played. And it is hard to play the acoustic guitar really well, especially when Lights is a electronic musician. So we know she's a great musician, and we know she probably writes all of her songs on the acoustic guitar, I would assume, first, and then they go into the studio and craft the songs around it, which is exactly the way that a lot of artists work that way. I always think of Depeche Mode when it comes to that, because if you listen to a Depeche Mode song, there is not an ounce of melody in anything. There is not. But Martin Gore writes the songs on the piano, and they're these beautiful songs that he writes on the piano, and they go into the studio and they strip all melody away, and they just put in bleeps and bloops and distorted drum loops and all these different sort of like crazy sounding like machine sounds. And that's what a Depeche Mode song is, then with David singing over the top of it, Dave Gahan. And so I assume that that's what happened with Skin and Earth. She wrote all these songs on the acoustic guitar. They went into the studio, and I do remember in the liner, I should have done this before we started, but in the liner notes of Skin and Earth, I remember specifically her talking about she worked with a new producer on this album, and it was a big deal because he was like a big time producer. And I don't remember who it was, and I could sit here and look, but I'm not going to. Oh, Chris Lord-Alge. Chris Lord-Alge, which is someone whose name you should recognize.
I do recognize it. I'm not sure why, but I do recognize it.
Oh, he's done so many things with different bands. But like when you get to work with a person like that, it changes the way that you maybe aren't necessarily used to doing things when you do it yourself, which is how everything else in her catalog was done. And so I think with Skin and Earth, it was a combination of I don't want to say distracted, but having the extra burden of doing the artwork and doing the comic books, but then also going into the studio with different people whose opinions she weighed very highly because they're a respected person in the music industry.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, not maybe necessarily having as much time as she wanted dealing with the comic book stuff to pull as much out of each of the songs that they could have. Because I really do feel like all the songs for the most part on Skin and Earth are just some low droning noise, a really cool drum beat, and then her singing. And I just described pop music now. Like that is what pop music is now. You know, what is Lorde? What is Billie Eilish? Low droning sound with the drum beat and a awesome woman singing over the top of it. So like, we can get to this in a sec, but like that's why when we're getting into my expectations for what PEP sounds like, I am trepidatious.
I have recently fallen down the rabbit hole of really enjoying reaction videos, and by recently I mean like over the last like year and a half.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what everyone did during pandemic.
Yeah, honestly, and
I started a whole channel, so
I'm really, really excited for you to hear this album because there's a lot. I think you're going to have a lot of fun things to say.
I hope so. I hope so too. One other thing I want to say is, I have two little video clips I want to insert in the video here, and the first one is a clip from the very first time I saw Lights live. We mentioned it a little while ago that back in 2012, after she released Siberia. It would have been hilarious to have the shirt right here and just be talking like this the whole time.
Perfect. I would love
what
it.
What an idiot. But anyway, it's funny because Chris, you know me well enough to know, but person watching, you may not know. I actually really hate live music, and I'm not going to go into all of that. But I was living at Omaha at the time when this album came out, and there was a venue that was relatively close to me called the Waiting Room that was, I'm sure is considered a very small venue, but in Omaha, Nebraska, there's not a ton of venues for artists to go to. And Lights was the size of artist that she would play at the Waiting Room. And I happened to see on Facebook that she was going to be coming there. And I had heard this album, but I didn't have it or own it yet or anything. And so I thought, I'd heard it and I thought, how do they produce that live? I had never been to an electronic show before, and I was like, how did they do all like the dubstep stuff and whatnot? And it was only I think like $25, so I bought myself a ticket and went myself. And to this day, I will say forever that it is the greatest show I've ever gone to. It was the best concert I have ever seen. It sounded immaculate, which is, you know, Chris, is one of my big issues with live sound. I think 99% of it sounds terrible. But it sounded fantastic. There was so much energy. She had all these cool pieces of equipment up on stage, including a theremin that they used to do theremin solos in like multiple songs. It was awesome. And she had this little box that she would, it was just I know now that it was just an oscillating frequency basically. And she would turn it to do like dubstep stuff. So she would be up there just like rocking and being crazy and flipping her hair and like metal dancing while having this little box in her hand and just like creating all these different dubstep things. And she was doing it all live, and it was all reactionary to what she was doing. And they had a real drummer, and they had two other guys playing with her. One guy playing guitar or bass, he switched off, and then one other person playing synth or keys, and she herself played keys and guitar. And I just was shocked. I was like, this is so incredible. And so that was when I bought this shirt and I bought this CD.
None of that has really changed. That's about what the show was a couple weeks ago.
Right. And so the other video, so I want to play just a clip real quick here that I found recently going back through and looking. This is not from my camera or anything, but this is a clip that I found on YouTube. So I just stole it from the person who had it. Sorry, person. But this is a clip from that actual show at the Waiting Room in Omaha, Nebraska from 2012 when I saw Lights performing Siberia live. the actual song that's in the video is Flux and Flow, and it is actually her standing there like turning the knobs on these things and just like rocking out, and it's so awesome.
She did exactly that a couple weeks ago. She still had her little box. She was still doing exactly that same stuff. Live drummer, extra guitarist. She did all of her own guitar stuff now, and then also the synth and the keys. So there was one member missing from what you saw, but it was
I would bet
killed.
I would bet she probably plays a lot more guitar now than she did maybe when she was younger. Because we're talking 10 years ago, at this point, that I got to see her for the first time. But I bet she plays a lot more guitar probably, but we'll see. I'm okay. Let's play you said, I think you have, is there anything else you wanted to say about the concert you got to see her at? Because you just got to see her last Monday?
It was on the 4th. Yeah,
the 4th.
Last 2 Mondays ago.
The day after the album, or the weekend after the album released.
It was 3 days after it came out. Yeah, so it came out Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It came out Friday, Saturday, Monday. Yeah, so 3 days later.
So it was great?
It was really good, yeah, because I saw her once, I think it must have been the Skin and Earth Tour 2017. I saw her at the same venue, and she did a great job then, too.
Yeah. And that's when you bought me this t-shirt, by the way.
Yep.
This shirt and this vinyl I bought because I actually took my sister to go see her when she was touring with Little Machines. So that's how I acquired these things, just to let the watcher know.
I don't know how I managed to miss that show, if maybe it just didn't come around here or what, but...
I think you had just moved.
Yeah,
at that point.
I definitely, because that was, I'd moved at the beginning of 2014, so maybe I just something. But yeah, it really, she sounded great. Her attitude is so much fun. She is so, I don't know, she's super chill, likes to talk to the audience a lot, and just killed it, man. The visuals behind her, she had 4 screens that did all kinds of neat stuff, and it was great. I have no complaints. Nothing was wrong with it. Sounded amazing.
So I think we have a clip here from that show that either you or your sister, who you went with.
Yeah, my sister. Right? She took a couple videos for Snapchat, and she sent those to me. And this is, them.
Isn't it cool that you got to go see Lights with your sister and I got to go see Lights with my sister?
Yeah.
I don't do very much stuff like that with my sister, so that's kind of a cool thing we have in common.
Yeah, I took a couple of friends too, because I was like, there's a friend of mine that my sister really likes, and so she wanted to hang out with him while she was here. And I was like, well, I know he's going to love this because he knows what good music is. And so I roped him into it, and his wife and his sister, and they're all like huge fans now. Like I converted all 3 of them all.
Love it. That's the whole point of sharing music with people.
Absolutely.
One other thing I want to say, when I did get to go see her for Little Machines, she had just had her daughter at the time.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And she actually...
I thought it was later than that.
No, she was less than a year old, but I think only just like 6-ish months old at the time. But I remember it specifically because she actually brought her daughter on stage. And we all got to see her, and she said, "Okay, everybody be quiet." Cool. She said, "Everybody be quiet." So everyone was quiet in the audience, and she brought her out, and she was wearing it was a baby, obviously, but the baby had big ear muff things on to protect her ears, as you absolutely should with a baby at a concert. But she brought her up on stage, and we all got to cheer her, and we actually sang her "Happy Birthday" or something. She must have been doing it on the show, because I don't think she was 1 year old, but it was like a big deal, and we were all like, "Yeah." Because she was like, everyone has to be quiet, and we were all going, yeah.
That's funny.
So it was really like a cool, unique moment that I
great.
Don't know if her daughter's probably in elementary school now, which is crazy to think about. But anyway, so I just wanted to shout that out.
Yeah. Let's get into this.
Well, first, one thing I want to do is, Chris, I think this is going to be a fun thing to do here. I'm going to take my headphones out, and I want you to just talk for however long you want. If you want to just talk for 30 seconds, if you want to talk for 3-4 minutes, your feelings about the album before we get to it with me listening to it. just to kind of see. And if you want to throw in some, like, I really think Patrick's going to like this and this and this or whatever, but you don't have to talk about me. You can just do your little, like, 4-minute review of the album now. And just so that people can see what you think before your opinion of the album probably gets tainted by either my gushing love or my seething hate of the album, depending on what ends up happening. So I'm going to take my earbuds out and then just either wave or text me or something when you're ready to keep going. But I'm just going to sit here and read a comic book while you're talking. Okay?
Sure. So, this album, 43 minutes, 13 tracks. She consistently puts out albums that are of an acceptable length. I know we've complained in videos about this before, about how like the minimum that we consider to be a proper album is 10 songs at least a half an hour, for whatever that's worth. But 13 songs, 43 minutes. I think at least two of the songs on here are probably in contention for my new favorite Lights song. And which is really saying something because Muscle Memory from Little Machines was hands down my favorite song of 2014. He had a couple friends of ours put together a bluegrass folksy cover of it for Christmas that year, which was so great. And it's just, I really like that song a lot. But Prodigal Daughter was the single from this album that dropped first. That song hits so good right away. And it's kind of the only complaint I have about that song, other than the fact that it's 2 minutes and 55 seconds, which is going to bother him. Who cares? It hits so, it's like 11 out of 10, and then it almost doesn't have anywhere to go after that. So it starts at 11, ends at like an 8. Fantastic song. Money in the Bag, track 5, is so good. It is so good, and it's so different. It's such a change up in style for her. It's my favorite song on the album. It is only 2 minutes and 45 seconds, which again, he's going to get a little bit out of shape about. But I love it. I think that is, and I do think, despite the length problem, he is going to love that song. Salt and Vinegar, same story. Sparky, Easy Money. There's so many good songs on here. It starts off, Beside Myself is a very chill, ethereal kind of beginning, like she has with a lot of albums. Little Machine starts with Portals. It's very similar to that. I mean, there's a couple of songs. Jaws is fine. I think it's probably one of the more forgettable songs on the album. And I think, Jaws is okay. I've always had this thought of making, like, if I had a graph, a line graph, to make a line graph of just across the top, quality songs, and then you just kind of make the line, so you get a really good idea of the overall quality of an album, but then also the individual song quality without any words or anything like that. And I've been meaning to put something like that together for a while. But one really interesting thing about this album that almost never happens is that the last song on the album is fantastic. Really, really good. Probably dips the hardest into the synthwave thing that she's been dabbling with for years and years. Love it so much. I can only think of one other album where that's true, and it is the second Purity Ring album, which is one of the most fantastic albums of all time. And I think let's just jump into this, because it's already been 100 million years since this video started, and we're all dying to see what he thinks about this. So let's do it.
Okay, I saw your hand go. Well, I can't reach my camera because it's far away from me, but hold on. I'm calculating the amount of songs on here that were solely produced by Lights and nobody else.
Ooh, this will be interesting.
So we have track 1, track 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
Then we have, and is there, how many songs are on here? 13. Oh, good. It's not a 9-track album. Woo! Okay, so the songs that were produced solely by Lights are 1, 5, 6, and 7. So I now that doesn't mean that she's the only performer on them, or that she's the only writer, but it says produced specifically, it says, so we have track 2 produced by one guy named Tommy English. Tracks 3, 4, and 8 produced by Tim Pignata. Sorry, I can't pronounce stuff. I'm sorry. Track 9 produced by Jaco Caraco. Again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Track 10 and 12 produced by Dylan Bald and Lights. Tracks 11 and 13 produced by Dylan Bald. And then all of the tracks produced by Lights. So what that means to me is 1, 5, 6, and 7 are Lights-only songs. And the rest of the songs were her featuring somebody else or somebody else specifically just producing. Then we have track 2 was mixed by Adam Hawkins. Tracks 11 and 12 were mixed by Dylan Bald, which is interesting because, well, it doesn't matter. But so we have 2, 11, and 12 were mixed by different people. And then all other tracks on the album, so everything other than 2, 11, and 12 were mixed by a guy named Nick Rad. So one of the things, so now we're moving into the section here real quick before we start. I know we keep doing this stuff before, but I want to talk a little bit about my expectations for the album and, what I've gained, the knowledge I've learned from the book. And so I think that one of the things that I would worry about with this is that it's inconsistent. I'm worried that it was going to be a little bit more inconsistent like some of her albums, and that from song to song to song to song, we might get who knows what. I do think with all the bright imagery and all of the sort of sarcastic nature of everything, that's the artwork and everything, that it's going to be a really fun album. I think that there's probably going to be a lot of energy, and I'm hoping that because of the pandemic and the extra time that I'm assuming she had to work on this stuff, and possibly time that she had herself to work on things maybe with some of her musical partners, I'm hoping the songs are going to be a lot more complex than Skin and Earth. Because like I said, Skin and Earth was pretty much just drum beat, low, muddy soup. We always call it the mid-range soup. Mid-range soup, drum beat, and female vocals over the top. I want these songs to be filled with things. And I especially want the return of synths. Because there's almost no real synth lines or anything on Skin and Earth. And so I want those to come back, especially because synthwave is making a huge comeback right now, and it's becoming a very popular thing. And so she has the infrastructure within her sound and her musical palette to definitely do things that sound, I'm not saying she's going to make a whole synthwave album or anything, but all of the elements are there for her to have elements of that within the music. And so I hope that that's something that happens. Did
you know she has a synthwave EP?
I did not, huh? Is it something she...
it's a half-an-hour EP. It's called Songs... No, it's called How to Sleep When You're on Fire.
Oh, really?
And it's just a synthwave, no vocals, all the way through, 30 minutes EP.
Really?
It's great. It's really great.
I don't know if that's on Spotify, because I've looked at her thing on Spotify.
No, it's hard to find. I think it's only on YouTube, and not even. I don't think even.
Is
YouTube
it an older thing?
It's YouTube proper, yeah. It's not
that's
super
awesome.
old. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, regardless, while you're looking that up, one other thing I want to say, I absolutely adore and love that she made a image for each of the songs on the album. And that in the booklet, every song has, hold on, let me find a good, there's a blue and yellow. In the booklet, every song has lyrics.
This came out, wow. This came out in June of 2020. I didn't realize it was that new. I thought it was older than that.
So it must have been something she made and just did while she was by herself in quarantine.
Yeah,
no.
It's on Bandcamp. No, June. Yeah, June.
June would have been early quarantine. Oh no, the world's falling apart. So I'll just make an album.
Yeah, that would have absolutely been the heart of quarantine for sure.
Yeah. But I like how each of the pages in the booklet, you see the corresponding image that she created, which we know she's a good artist because she did a whole comic book run. The image she created, which is really cool to have these tiny little emoticon things or whatever that just represent each song. I love that. And then the lyrics are also in here. And so I will say, I am bummed to know, before we listen, that there are 3 songs on this album that she has swear words in. And one of them is like the chorus is like swear words abound, according to what the lyrics are. Again, I haven't heard it. So that one, I'm like, I was reading through the book and I got to the first swear word and I was like, oh, there's a lot of swear words in here. She's doing exactly what I always tell you people need to do, Chris. If you're gonna be a bear, you might as well be a grizzly, right? So just if you're gonna swear and do it to the nines. Be Cypress Hill. That's
yeah,
just
yeah.
Be Cypress
Bring
Hill.
them back.
And so. Then the song following that one, there's one F-bomb in it, and then a couple songs later, there's one other F-bomb. So those songs are kind of like, why do you do that? Don't do that. There's no other swear words on the album at all, just F words. And there's one song that has a bunch of them, and then two other songs that they only do it once. So for me, right off the bat, that's kind of like, eye-rolly. However, as I say in every single video here on my channel, it's not something that's going to ruin the album for me or anything. However, there are two things that could ruin this album for me. If any one of these songs fades out, I am going to smack someone. There better not be a single song that fades out. I respect Lights too much to have her go lazy artist on me and try to have a song fade off into the distance and exist forever.
Has she ever done that?
Yeah, I think she did. Probably on the listening, I think she maybe had one.
I can't remember.
Two.
I can't remember if she did, and I don't know if there are any fades in this song,
which is funny because I know you've heard the album several times.
I have.
But there better not be any fades. I don't expect there to be because she's a good artist and a good musician, and I am assuming writing the end of a song is just as exciting as writing the intro of the song. So
there's an awful lot of really great musicians with fades that you're just like,
yeah, but they did it probably because of the medium at the time was such that they had to fade their stupid song out. Because they're
just hate it so much
because their albums exist on this stupid format, which you can only have so long on. This is worth it for this. We get this, or even on something like this from 1923, where you could only fit 3 minutes on each side of this. So go figure how you're going to put some 45-minute Bach, concerto on this. But to have,
I cannot wait until we start this episode. This actual.
I'm sorry.
Video.
I'm sorry. Okay. With all that said, let's listen to PEP.
I will say, going back to what you said about which songs she produced herself. 1, 5, 6, 7. Is that right?
1, 5, 6, 7. Yep.
Okay. 1 is that makes all the sense in the world.
Well,
5
and 1 is probably, I would assume, sort of like an intro song, kind of like Portal was for. Because there's no drums on that track. It's by far the most different sounding song on that album. So I would just assume. Who knows, though? Yeah.
And then 5 is one that I would consider to be the most surprising to hear that for. So that's great.
Hold on. I'm plugging in different headphones. I got to be careful with how I... All right, can you hear me?
Yep. Okay.
These headphones really are very sensitive with the connection cable, which is why I have to have this whole separate doop-de-doop here. So hopefully I don't have any issues with anything. What happens is the left side goes out and I only get music in the right, which is very, very, very annoying. So watcher, if you see me fiddling with this, it's because it's not perfect. Say something, Chris.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And
why didn't you do the whole episode like this?
Because these are big, giant headphones, and I thought it would look a little bit nicer with my tiny little white earbuds.
I see.
That gives people more time to see the cool stuff behind me and on the shelf before I block it with my enormous head and headphones. Plus, I said, these are finicky, so...
Sure, yeah, you don't want to toss them around the whole time.
Yeah. Okay, so Chris and I did a bunch of prep for this to try to figure out how this is going to work, so... What I think we're going to do is I'm going to play everything from my computer. Chris and I will be hearing the exact same audio at the exact same time. So I'm going to try to sort of treat this the way I have treated all the videos on my channel like this, and I'll talk a little bit over the music. Chris, you and I can have a bit of a conversation if you want. If I say something and you want to respond to it, that's totally fine. We can talk however much we want. But because we're going to maybe pause between songs and do a little bit of talking, you can save certain comments if you want. We'll just kind of see how it goes organically. And if nothing else, we can kind of listen to the album and then save a large chunk of our conversation for afterwards.
Yeah, I'll probably take notes and try to save most of it for the end.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So, are you ready, Chris?
Yes, I'm so ready.
Oh, one other thing. There's 3 songs that feature a guest artist, which is really interesting. So I'm curious what the guest artists are going to be, though. I would love it if we got a rap verse. My phone's ringing, sorry. I would love it if we got a rap verse in one of these songs, though I don't know if we're going to get that because I did look through the lyrics and I didn't necessarily notice anything that felt like that, but
Oh, sure.
who knows, it could have been. There are some big chunky like paragraphs of a verse in here, so maybe she I'm assuming some of these songs she's going to get a little bit wordy with what she's saying, which could be really nice because you know how I love me some like a lot of vocals.
Yep.
So
Please.
just wanted to point that out.
Please start the song.
Yep. All right. Here we go. I will adjust the volume on my end, Chris, but we'll see what ends up happening. Track 1, Beside Myself, starting right now.
Ghosts of us in the next life.
Oh, lots of vocoders.
When we know on our last night.
Dude, just like Portal. Love it.
They remind us to hold on tight.
I'm also curious to see, there better not be any 2-minute songs on here because those are worthless. But also, I'm anxious to see if she goes back to the chorus a third time each time, or if how the songs are structured. Because I would not, she definitely could go in a more like modern pop direction, but we'll see. She's also probably been holding a lot of this music in during quarantine, and so, there's a lot to come out.
On the other side, don't leave me hanging, waiting for something, believing in nothing.
I also will say, not indicative of this, but reading the lyrics, there was a lot of like sass and sort of sarcasm to the lyrics, and also a lot of like, I'm gonna take charge, I'm not the young girl I used to be, things like that. So there could be more sort of like aggressive feelings to this album as well. Again, just basing on some of the lyrics. Strummed electric guitar, right in the middle. That sounds really bad, but it fits the song. It's just a stupid, basic sounding strummed electric guitar. Yes. Oh, this sounds good. And those sound like real drums.
They were
Or that
live.
snare. That snare definitely sounds like a real snare. Nice low bass sound too. Very all-encompassing bass, but not muddy sounding at all. Dude, it would be awesome if the album had a bit more of like a rock band feel to it. I don't necessarily expect that, but with the drums, this is shocking to me. I did not expect... Like the hi-hat really sounds like a real hi-hat being performed too. Which I think if that is the case, this would be the first album that she has recorded with the real drums. I think. Like acoustic drums. She could have had a person like playing the drums on like an electronic kit or something.
No, they were real live drums.
Yeah, I think
on
live
stage.
she always performs with the drums. But that doesn't mean that that's what they would do in the studio.
Sure.
It sounds so wide. It's very good. And I'll point out too that once the drums and everything kicked in, the background vocals went from being vocoder vocals and like layers of vocoder to actual background vocals too,
That's
which
true.
is really nice. I mean, this reminds me of One Republic, which is great. I would not expect that. It's so happy, There's a lot of like reverb on the guitars and things that are happening off to the sides so that it's like filling the space nicely. And she has a very high voice, so it's nice when she sings in it with her falsetto like this.
Don't leave me here beside myself, beside myself.
Dude, I'm pumped. I'm hyped. This is great. This is great. Okay, that's track 1, I think.
Yep.
I'm not looking at my... Okay, there we go. In My Head, featuring Josh Dunn. Whoa. Guitar. And then a smashing 808 bass. Yes. This is awesome.
I really like this
Dude,
song a
that
lot.
kick. Yes. Her voice sounds fantastic. Awesome reverb there. Cavernous. But it bloomed up. Been completely dry. Yes. Dude, that hi-hat makes it. Dude, and the guitars. The electric guitars on the side. Yes. Dude, the production is fantastic.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh. That... See, I don't really hear a bass happening here, but the kick drum is so encompassing. There is definitely like low synth bass in there, but it's just like a sub frequency. Dude, the hip hop drum loop, yes. And there's a lot of vocal layering. She's doing the thing where her vocals are, she did 2 takes, like an overdub, panned to the wide, but then she has additional harmonies off to the sides as well. And there is still a very dry, mostly high frequency sounding lead vocal in the middle. And now that's gone, and it's just the 2 takes on the sides doing harmony parts. Dude, she is doing exactly what I said, like faster rhythmic vocal stuff. Not necessarily rapping, but like... Yeah. Love it.
Dude, she hit that live. Perfect. Blew the place apart.
Dude, the drum beat. Oh, it's awesome. If every song was this exact same music with her singing different words, this would probably still be her best album. That's how much I love the drum beat. So now, gosh, the all-encompassing low end is great too. I'm just shocked with the guitar. Like, there is lead guitar happening off to the sides, and there's a lot of reverb. So maybe they wanted an album that they could perform live a little bit more like accurately, like a band would. Dude, awesome.
It's really hard to hear you when the music's playing, just so you know.
Oh, do you need me to turn it down, and then we can turn the volume of our...
Don't worry about it. This song is...
Hold on, I'm gonna turn the volume down, and then we can both turn our devices up.
Sure.
Okay.
This is probably very close to my possibly favorite song on the album.
Okay. Now, is this the first song she released? Because when she released it, you were like, this may be one of the best songs she's ever done. And I was like, I'm gonna wait. This is cool. This part. Dude, that synth bass is cool. Ooh, and that guitar on the sides. And that, like, chunky guitar riff there for just a second. I think that's a guitar. That could be a synth there. That boo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Some pitch shift vocals in there. Again, with a cool drum beat. Wow. Her vocals are really different here, which is nice. Now, this is very modern. This feels like a very much like of the times right now part. I don't want to say necessarily Billie Eilish or Halsey or something like that. Halsey for sure.
It fits in there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Dude, I love the stereo. The mix is so wide, but you can still pinpoint everything. The reverb is done very tastefully as well. And the hi-hats have a lot of reverb on them, but it's not like roomy reverb. It's like an effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It gives the effect that you're in like a bigger space, but it works really well with the mix. And her vocals on this song have a little distortion. They have had some distortion on them. Yes. Dude, yes. When it kicks in the chorus. Did they start their set with this song?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, she's screaming, "I'm back."
Yeah, right.
It also makes sense contextually with being the prodigal daughter, though, as well. So that's really cool. Oh, I was going to say, and I can't believe I forgot this. There's a song on here called Jaws, Chris.
Yes,
which
there
is, I know, one of your favorite movies of all time.
Has nothing to do with it.
Nah. Okay, hip-hop totally infused in this, all the first three, like, songs we've heard. Yes. There's definitely a swagger to this that, like, was not in... I think maybe a little bit on Skin and Earth, but not on Little Machines at all. Whoa. Whoa, that bass line. Mm-hmm. Dude. I feel like there's, like, maybe a little reggae to this, too, which is really cool. Whoa. That... The build. That's like a dissonant. It's like a dissonant, like off feeling, like slide. Very cool. Dude, the guitars are blowing me away every single song. I just don't think of guitars and lights music as like being like a lot of the stuff that we're hearing in this song is a guitar doing things. Mm-hmm. Which is really cool. And then this bass line, which sounds like it was played on a real bass.
It does, yeah. I'd be blown away if it wasn't.
The like sort of sound effect-y type of things that are happening too off to the sides.
Yeah.
Well, that, but even like there's like some extra cymbals and things too.
Yeah.
Like it's like really like you're really close to the microphone and there's like little granule things moving around. Mm-hmm. Oh, Chris, we forgot to get our beverages. Dang it. I'm going to pause it after this. I'm going to pause it after this and get my beverage.
All right.
I haven't even thought to stop it between songs. Dude, oh. I love the big beat stuff. Yes, I like this little moment at the end of this song here, just letting the music go a little bit rather than just stopping it right away. So now we're on track. Oh, I'm going to pause it.
I think that you should hurry up and pause it.
Okay, I did.
Good. This is a really important track.
I didn't even think of pausing once the whole time. Good. I just was enjoying it and listening to it. And then I thought of my pop that I want to go get in a second. And then I was like, oh, that's right. We were going to talk about it between songs. Like, it didn't even occur to me. Okay, so far, I love it. I love this. It's amazing. It's exactly something that I like. This is like hip hop music with really cool. I love that she's doing all this cool rhythmic stuff vocally. You know, if you had a rapper performing the exact same thing she's performing, but doing it in more of a rap style, these would just be rap songs with slightly fewer like rap verses, like, or hip hop more than rap, but whatever. That's some. So like, I love the beats. I love everything we've heard. The first song, I was shocked because it was like a real drum kit. And then we've got none of that. The rest of this 3 songs we just heard were all just cool, sweet drum beats, drum loops. And her vocals are amazing. Her vocals are fitting right in the pocket. Not too loud, which I definitely think was a problem for some of her stuff in her early material. The vocals are a little bit too loud. And actually, some of the stuff, her vocals weren't loud enough, I believe. Like some of the stuff on Siberia could have been a little bit louder. But everything is fitting in the pocket. There's so many layers. Exactly what I said I was wondering if it could happen. There's so many things, so many different sounds, so many different things to listen to. There hasn't so far been very much bass to really pay attention to, other than to just know that there's this giant all-encompassing like sub-frequency happening almost the entirety of every song. With the exception of the verses, maybe that's not necessarily true. This last song for sure. But then the first track 2 had more of a beat that had less bass with it, and it was just the giant kick drum that was filling up all of the low frequency space in the mix. Yeah, the guitars are the thing that's the most shocking to me so far, because you wouldn't have to have all these layers of guitars. Like in track 3, we had, during the chorus, there was like palm muting off to the side, very simple, but just like with a little bit of a delay. So like plucky, like ding 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 stuff, and that was done on the guitar. And then there was like straight up just like open guitar chords on the other side to like balance everything out. Then there was like a really cool like synth bass in the middle. And so like everything that we're hearing is electronic and feels like more of like a hip hop song, which doesn't necessarily lend itself to all this guitar layering that we're hearing.
But it all fits together so well.
Oh, it does.
It fits Light's style so well.
Yes. Her vocals also, by the way, we're only on track 5, and she has already sung like with multiple different styles and doing things that I have not heard her do on any of her other stuff. So I love that. Exactly like I said right before this, the swagger is there. Like there is a swagger to all of this that's happening. Okay, so let's take a second. I'm going to go grab my beverage. I'll do what I normally do. Look right here on my table. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. And Chris, I have been saving this since October of last year. This is my last mystery flavor Mountain Dew.
Are they all different?
No, they're all the same flavor. It's just it was a different flavor than Mountain Dew. Oh, I've left it in the freezer for too long. Dang it.
Oh boy.
That's all right. I can let it sit. I mean, we're going to be here for another. Hold on. I got my fingers stuck.
That's all, everybody. Good night.
That's all, folks.
Yep.
Okay. I'll let it, it can dry off. It's a bit of slush, but whatever. It'll do the trick. Okay. Is there anything you want to say before we move on?
I think track 5 is my favorite. I mean, track 5 is my favorite. It might be my new favorite Lights song.
Now, this is Money in the Bag, which when I was reading the lyrics, I was like, this is like they're robbing a store or something. Like, this is awesome. So I'm really excited. Now, this is also, track 1 was produced just by Lights. So this is the first of 3 songs in a row we're going to have here that were just produced by Lights. No other person at least credited with the production.
Right.
So, all right, here we go. This is track 5. Lots of guitar, obviously, if that's a guitar.
Put the money in the bag. That's how this works. Do what I
Oh, that was cool. That was like muscle memory.
Or you're playing it cool. Let's be losing your shirt. Put the
Her vocal totally dry. Dude, that guitar, that palm muted guitar. Ooh! Yeah! Holy cow! Dude, to have the half tempo there, great. Ooh, and that synth bass there. Simple guitar, but it's doing the trick. This is like a soul song almost, it feels, with her.
Yeah, it just changes. It's huge.
Yeah. It feels like a dubstep song, you know? When you're building and building and then you get to the drop or a trap song and it just drops and it's like half tempo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really nice electric piano there. Now this one, is this one that features another person? It does. I haven't heard anyone else. But I have heard, I think, in the background vocals, there sounds like a crowd of people more so than just her overdubbing. Mm-hmm. Yeah! Dude, twangy guitar in there. What a cool thing to fit in there. That twangy tremolo guitar. Put the money in the bag. That sounds like there's an a different voice in there than just hers. Mm-hmm. That must be where. Dude, that guitar sound is awesome. And it's in the back far enough. Wait, is this gonna fade out? No. I'm not worried. I'm not worried.
No, you know better than that.
That's great. Yes. That's an awesome synth brass patch.
Yes.
Like it's a brass patch, but it's very cool. Got nice finger snaps there, and a lot of finger snaps as well.
This one sounds the most like it could be on Little Machines.
I was gonna say that it does
Aside
sound
from
like
that first song.
Right.
Clicks, mouth clicks.
Yep. Doesn't that just make you think of what's that? The horror movie?
Hereditary?
Yeah, Hereditary.
It does, yeah.
There's like a ch in there that it sounds like a cymbal, but I don't think it's a cymbal hit. It sounds like it could just be like a white noise, like a
yeah, it's just a little noise hit.
Yeah. But it has like a human quality to it too. Like not every one of them is a uniform length, so it probably is hitting something.
Background vocals awesome.
Yes. Yes. Very muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
Same effect, basically. So this is the song that has all the swear words in the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna edit it for the video. So put my editing skills to the test. Though most of the chorus there's no music going on, so I think I should be able to do it pretty easy. Yeah, come back to that chorus a third time. Thank you. So this one has a bit of it's interesting that this song is coming after the song we just heard, where the chorus was halftime, because this is like a slow song that's the same tempo as that, or around the same tempo as the slow part from the chorus of the previous song. So, also I've heard no guitars in this song at all, but it doesn't need it. See, like in some ways, this song to me sounds like something that could have been on Skin and Earth. When it first started, it reminded me of Kicks a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true.
That was cool, though. I liked it. I've liked every single song so far. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we're on Rent. If you want me to pause between songs, just let me know, okay?
No, I'm good.
Otherwise, I'll just keep going. Now, this is really nice. Little electric piano there. Yeah. Oh. Dude, that... Oh, the hi-hats are... Yeah, the guitars and the hi-hats are the standouts on the album so far for me.
Mm-hmm.
The enormity of that kick sound, but then it's not enormous loud.
Really digging into the synthwave in this album.
Yes. So the synths are back, I'm happy to say. See that vocal, live in my head, you gotta, that was very Muscle, or Lights, Little Machines vocal. And then that background, really like 100% wet reverb background vocal.
That's pure Lights, like that.
Yeah.
If there was anything else.
Yeah. But it makes me think of like Little Machines more so than Skin and Earth, for sure. And the more this album would compare to that, actually, it's kind of a cool combination of both. Because Skin and Earth had those really cool drum beats, and it definitely like a hip-hoppy feel to it.
That's true, yeah.
God, this drum beat might be my favorite one on the album so far. Fences, which is a reference possibly to where the fence is low. Not that you can't use the same word, but, you know.
It's interesting when artists repeat things like that.
Reference something, yeah. Whether it's a reference or not.
Right.
Ooh, some more vocoders in there. A low octave vocoder too, which is really cool. And her ghosty vocal.
I love that synth line.
Yeah. I love that you can hear like someone is actually playing that like electric piano sound. I don't know what sound it is exactly, but you can hear that someone's playing it, probably her. But that's such a unique thing, you know? Britney Spears isn't gonna be in the studio playing an electric piano on one of her songs, you know? Mm-hmm. Not to just compare, I love Britney Spears and her music. Like, you know, I don't necessarily love the person, but I love Britney Spears' music. I'm just saying, there's a lot more musicality to these songs, I think, than were on Skin and Earth, which is exactly what I wanted. Great. That was probably my favorite drum beat on the album, I would say. Okay, now we're on Sparky. Which track is this? Track 8?
Yep, 8.
So this is one of the we're back to the songs that other people produced.
Okay.
See, now on this song, her voice isn't dry. She does have more of like a roomy sounding reverb on it. But there are some overdubs that might be pitch shifted. Yeah, there's some overdubs that are pitch shifted to make it sound like different layers. Ooh. Oh. Little Casio beat on the keyboard there. Or a little Casio drum. What the heck? It's the guitar again. It keeps coming in and shocking me. which is ironic since this is Sparky.
There's so much more, like, I'm much more taken by that huge low synth. I didn't even realize there was a guitar on top of it.
Well, it's just someone playing the damn guitar, which is not something that I would expect with this. It's so great. Like, that's a guitar well, for you it'd be on the left side.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But it was like a very affected, like, warbly thing. But to make that choice, to be like, okay, the chorus is done. We have a little transition here between the chorus and second verse. What are we gonna fill that space with? And to say, we're gonna use the guitar, like a distorted electric guitar, that's such an awesome choice. It's giving this album a lot of its character, the guitar is. This is cool, a little half-tempo part here. Wow. I mean, that sounds like a Black Keys, like that sounds like a Black Keys guitar part. Which, by the way, Chris, May 12th, I think, new Black Keys album. And this isn't like their garbage album they released last year. This is a real Black Keys album. So...
Love those side vocals.
Male vocals, right? Or her voice pitch shifted. Yes. Dude, this is like a good summer album. I feel like this is like...
Yeah. It's got a lot of energy.
This is not a winter album at all, no. Whereas I would feel like Little Machines would definitely be more of a wintry album. That guitar is so awesome. It's got so much room tone to it. Sounds like it was recorded 5 feet away from the amp, and I love that. Probably just a digital like effect added afterwards. Okay, so this is Fake. Or no, this is Real Thing.
Real Thing, yeah.
Sorry, Fake is Fake is the image. Oh, love the... Very cool. Ooh. This is featuring Elohim or whatever.
Yeah. Who's probably that intro vocal?
Her vocals sound higher quality in this song. Like the recording. Like they used a better microphone. Not necessarily higher quality, but like it's drier and it sounds more raw as opposed to being effect heavy. I wonder if this song was produced this is track 9? Yeah, this is the only song produced by Jaco Caraco or Jaco Caraco.
This song is very Melanie Martinez in a lot of ways.
Okay. I think this is the best sounding the vocals have sounded on the album. In terms of quality. I'm not saying it's my favorite vocals.
Sure.
But
very Melanie Martinez, actually.
All those like those like tinkly things, really cool. It's interesting. It almost gives it kind of like an Asian feel to me.
Yes, I was thinking that.
Which is really interesting. I don't know why specifically.
It might be the tones or like
maybe
the scale or whatever they use.
Ooh, that synth just now. Yes. That's awesome. That's also kind of oriental sounding.
Just
dude,
the touch of these little tiny 8-bit sounds.
Yeah. Woo, woo. Now all of a sudden it sounds like a real drum kit, but I'm sure it's just using different samples.
Those get the vocals.
Very
They're
wide.
so far away.
This is a really nice, like, chill, mellow song. Unless she screws this up really badly, Chris, this might be my favorite Lights album. We're only on track 9, too. We got 4 more to go. Now, I would expect the last one to be something a little different and special. Whether it's slow or, you know, who knows. Awesome. So this is track 10. Easy Money.
I expect you on your worst behavior.
Oh.
I ain't a
Ooh.
giver, but you know I'm not a taker. Yeah. When you're riding in the
Wow.
night, I'll be shotgun. Yeah.
So tasty. Those, like, funky guitar licks. This is reminding me of Hurts a lot. Their 4th album.
Tell me, would you put your money on me? Got it, 1, 2, 3.
Dude, that also sounds kind of oriental.
But you're safe with me. I wanna know, baby. But you count on me.
That synth bass, it's so nice and round.
Bet on you, baby, that's easy.
It sounds like the same synth that they used in...
Easy money.
Very cool. And then that claps come in during the chorus with the snare drum. Whistling, too. That gives it, like, a nice airiness to it. I was going to say, earlier in this song, I heard something that reminded me of that part during Toes, where there's that one synth line, that little synth thing that just goes boo-doo-doo. It's like a big part of the song, but it just goes boo-doo-doo. I heard that it's like the exact same synth sound here. So I would wonder if live they play this song and then Toes after or before it, so they don't have to change patches. The vocals here do sound like something different. Like I would say this is probably the least lights sounding song on the album in terms of her vocals. You know,
Yes,
Taylor Swift could sing on this, you know. And this is one that this is track 10, right?
Yep.
This one and then track 12 were both produced by Dylan Bald and the Lights. And then the next song we're going to hear was only produced by Dylan Bald. So the guitars on this song have all been dry, no distortion, palm muted like funky stuff. So we'll see if that kind of transitions into the next 2 songs. I mean, not that a producer couldn't do, you know, whatever they wanted, but it's interesting to pay attention to that kind of stuff as you're listening. Dude, I love the synth bass sounds because they could just be using a regular bass for this, but having it be that synth bass sound and the way it does sound specifically like 80s sort of synth, that's what makes it feel like a Lights song.
This whole song is very 80s, I think.
Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. Whoa. Very 80s. Having a synth line and then the vocals just doing that, following along with it. And a guitar line. Real bass guitar. Okay. More pitch shifted background vocals. The bass has a little distortion on it now. Yep. Ooh. Wow. This is like a Selena Gomez song or something now. You know, Rebecca Black. Whoa! Whoa, she made a rock song! They need to play this. Now, live, if they play this one, I'll bet they play this one with Running with the Boys. Because I'm getting that kind of a vibe. I love this part. This is really cool. What a cool way to start the song, too. Now, the snare drum on this song sounds like a big, hollow snare drum sound. It's not that quack, cracky snare. And that just automatically makes it feel like a live drum kit. Now, also, he's playing some tom here. So this is definitely someone playing a real drum kit.
Yes.
Playing the floor tom. This is hilarious, this part. I mean, Avril Lavigne, you know, it's just... Oh,
I love the way she holds that F.
Yeah! Dude, this could grow to be one of my favorite songs on the album. Just listening to it for the first time. It's reminding me of other things other than Lights, which is really cool. Dude, I'm so glad that this album is awesome. I was so scared that it was going to be not good, and it's great. I will just say, too, there's a lot of Imagine Dragons influence in this. All that, like,
why do you gotta ruin it by saying that?
Dude, Imagine Dragons is cool. Dude, this is just like, the mix is being handled masterfully. Like, I'll get more into it later when we talk about the album. I don't want it to be over. We got 2 more songs. Wow. Really liked that song. Really. A lot.
This next one's very classic Lights, I think.
Okay. Is this do we have a ballad here? The penultimate song is ballad, which means the last song's probably not a ballad, which could mean the last song's got some special thing to it. Or not. Maybe it's the crappiest song she wrote, and so she's like, we'll hide it at the end. I doubt it, though. A lot of vocals in this song. If you look at the book here, this side has 2 giant columns of lyrics. The last song only has 1 little column.
Sure.
Now that doesn't matter. It could be repeated. You know, the last song could be 10 minutes and this song could be 2. But all the background vocals are really good throughout the album, the whole thing. Yeah, this is giving me like the listening vibes, like something she would have done there, which is cool. That's probably the first time I've thought that listening to this. Gosh, so good. And if anyone's watching this and you're like, why aren't you breaking down how amazing the lyrics are? That's not generally something that I listen to the first time. I try to focus a little bit more on production because that's the thing that interests me the most. But when I listen to this album more in the future, like I will probably lay in bed at night, maybe tonight, and go through and like listen to the album while looking at the lyrics. This is great. I mean, we're getting into like a Toby Mac song or something, like a pounding like.
That's true.
Like a driving like anthemic rock song, you know, not rock, but like an anthemic song, and then having the more and more vocals coming in.
This is not nearly the ballad that I thought it was.
I love that like glockenspiel type sounding bell thing off to the side. She just has this way of singing sometimes that's just so her, so unique to her.
Yep.
More vocoders. Just dry bass there. See, there's
Anthem is much stronger word than ballad for this. I was wrong.
yeah. Well, it started out as a ballad, and it could have been that, but now it's become this. And the guitars are, just chugging along really fast with it. See, the fact that there's so much reverb, usually in a lot of these songs spread out everywhere, when the reverb goes away, it's like a really special moment, and it really helps to separate and differentiate the different parts of the different songs. Like that, just ending the song like that. Mm-hmm. There was still a lot of reverb on it, but... Okay, last track. This is Grip. Ooh.
You were right about this track, by the way.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, it's rattling my headphone. There's something. Dude, I love that dark synth sound. Ooh. That's snare.
I love the way that synth shudders on its way out. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Now, that snare also is a snare hit with a tambourine hit as well. This is great. I mean, this could be the Birthday Massacre. Could do something like this.
Absolutely.
You know? Ooh. Totally dry vocal. A little too loud. A little too loud compared to where it was before. But that's okay. We'll give her a pass. Ooh, distortion being added. Turn the distortion knob up there. Yeah! Ew. Ooh. That's a cool sound. And there's like some sort of like almost like a glass or something. Tickle, 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 tickle. And that massive like snare. Ooh, I love this like alternating synth thing that's happening here. Dry.
Yeah, it's like right here, and then everything else moves back, comes out.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
That's it. Shoot. Whew. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not gonna lie. That last song was disappointing to me. I think.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think that I'm gonna stop sharing just in case that's doing anything to our stream here. But yeah, just because I almost would have liked to have, well, no, that wouldn't have worked either. I was going to say I almost would have liked to have that song and the first song flipped.
No, it feels more final.
It does. And the thing is, you wouldn't want to start the album off that way because the rest of the album is not like that at all. The rest of the album's not really like that first song either, but it really
that first song feels like a really good bridge from previous work.
Yes, I would say that. And it was definitely reminiscent of Portal at first. But then, like I said, I was so shocked the guitars coming in. And that's what I kept going back to the whole time. The guitars just really shocked me and surprised me throughout the whole album, because for them to make that decision to include so many guitars throughout the songs, and just like guitars doing multiple guitar parts too. It's not just, if you have a guitar player on the stage, he's playing whatever he wants to, he's playing his part throughout the song. They had like palm muting over here, strumming over here, like just a low note over here, like power chord over here, like all in the same song, all using it to keep the mixers wide, along with all of the crazy reverb and the low booming low frequencies. Yeah. Wow.
This is the first time that I've actually like really sat and listened to this album. Like all this time I've had it overwhelmingly just playing in the car, going around doing stuff. Like to sit here and really, put in the headphones, be on the reference EQ that I've got, and just sit and do just this. Like there's a lot of stuff in there that was new, and like I thought Voices Carry was a ballad because that's just the part of it that I remember. And like even songs like Jaws, like I think you're going to find the little thing that I said while you were not listening to be very, very interesting.
Okay.
And one of the things I said in it is that I kind of found Jaws to be rather forgettable compared to the rest of the songs. Okay. And I think that that's probably less true now. Okay. And I think that the number one reason I thought that is because of how much of like a high energy, like dynamic, pumpy sort of thing those first 4 tracks before that are.
Yes.
And just Jaws comes back down and does a different thing. And it's like, okay, well, here's a lull in the middle of the album, Jaws, Rent, and Sparky, that I was just like, well, these are just kind of softer jams after the first 5. But that just consistently, every single song that I thought was a certain level of like really low energy never met that. It was always way higher, even on the slower stuff, which is interesting just from a memory perspective.
Well, and it's always different. It's always fun to listen to things in a different context. We've talked about that before so many times. Like how many people that truly say they love music don't ever sit down with like really good either speakers or headphones and like listen to the music that they like, Yeah.
Listen to it with the same focus that you would watch an episode of a TV show.
Or read a book.
And even then beyond that, exactly. Reading a book is a perfect example because even with TV, you can check your phone every 30 seconds,
Yes.
But to really sit there and just listen to it, you get a lot of stuff out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that one of these, I think it was either maybe Okay, but one of them was very much like, this is a song that, I don't think that was the right one, but it's one of those songs where it's just like there's all kinds of stuff going on and you can sit and you can listen to it and it's like, oh, I didn't catch that last time. You didn't catch this before. Like one of the albums that turned me into this thing that I am now, doing this with you,
I know
is
exactly
the first People in Planes album.
People in Planes, yep.
People in Planes, because it was exactly that, where it's like there's like Rush and Moth and Light for the Dead Vine and Black Widow. Like you listen to those and it's like there's just so much happening. That it's really subtle, but you sit there and listen to it, and it's just this depth. It's like looking out into space. Like if you just look at one spot long enough, stuff will start to come into focus that you hadn't seen before.
There was a lot of moments on the album where, and towards the end here, I mentioned that there were a little bit of Imagine Dragons influences. And what I meant by that was Imagine Dragons was like the first like mainstream on the radio act that I heard where you would be listening to their song and there was all of a sudden just like someone made like a sound off to the side. Like it could have been anything. Like, but someone, like it just sounds like while they were recording, someone was just sitting in the room and just went whoop or something like that. And like, it's just there and it's reverb to all high heaven, and so the music is like low and there's a lot of dry things happening, low frequency, and then off to the side there's just like a whoop, and then the whoop is just like this all-encompassing reverb that just like it's like a fast transient percussive element that then is just like it's like a sound effect being put into the song, and I don't even know how to explain it really, other than how I just did. But like, there's a lot of that stuff on this album. Like, it sounds like someone just had like their mouth really close to the microphone, and they just were like,
Yeah,
using
like you could go through and
and
like,
not just the like obvious like and stuff like that.
right, but like you could go through and pick out all these little superfluous additions to things,
Yes.
and then you just like, okay, count them all. What would this song be without them? And the answer is boring.
Yeah, probably. Those are those sprinkles that we always were talking about. You know, there's you can be a band and write a song with guitar, bass, drums, vocals. But the thing that interests me is what is in your song that's not just guitar, bass, drums, vocals. You know, I've always said that the sprinkles on top of the band.
Yeah, what else are you bringing to the table? Guitar, bass, drums, vocals is just a band. That's just music. What else is happening?
Right. And so many amazing things can be just those elements.
For sure, for sure.
But I think me specifically and you too, I really gravitate towards bands that aren't afraid to go to the studio and add those sprinkles, those different things. Screw it if you can't perform it live, just have it as a track or whatever, you know? But
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you know, and like, and who cares, you know, like not who cares. To me, who cares? But like, I like it when a band doesn't hinder themselves in the studio based on what they can perform live.
I don't think that they should either. I absolutely don't think they should.
For sure. But I think a lot of bands think that. And they go into the studio and their producer says, it'd be really cool if we had like piano in the background of this song. And they're like, we don't have a piano player. Take your stupid idea.
Well, and that's one of the
go
great
home,
things
you know?
about the way that tech is moving is how much of that you can recreate digitally and have it sound exactly the way you want it to sound.
Right. And all of this is sort of kind of like a moot point for this anyway, because Lights is an electronic artist, which means she, from the beginning, is crafting the song with like far less limitations right away from the get-go than most, even though we said earlier that she sits down and writes the songs on the acoustic guitar, which I do still believe it sounded like she probably did for a lot of this. You know, because the other way to write songs like this would be to go in the studio, to sit on your computer and like create like a cool drum beat or something, and then have that looped and see if that inspires you to like write some lyrics or whatever. And you can kind of like write pieces to songs and then put things together. And then that's how songs are created. Lots of bands do stuff that way nowadays. But I still think that it sounded to me, and it's hard to tell, but it sounded to me like she still wrote a lot of these songs on just the acoustic guitar. I cannot wait for the acoustic version of whatever this is. And that doesn't mean I'm looking past this, because PEP is fantastic. But PEP acoustic could be really cool because
interesting.
Because there's so many parts that were like faster rhythmically, especially the first 4 or 5 songs, like you were saying. There's so much high energy there. And a lot of them were based on like hip hop drum beats that were fantastically produced. The entire album, I think the drums were fantastic across the board. Really, probably the best part of the album if I stopped and thought about it.
Yeah. And one thing about this album, like the comment that I made earlier about how much this sounds like a maturation, like it's the most mature album. I think one of the things about it that does that for me is the fact that it feels like it's the fullest, most complete album in terms of like instrumentation and what's happening. Like, you know, as we talked about, you know, Little Machines has its excellence that it is, but it is still very limited in terms of the different dynamics of, you know, instrumentation and stuff that's coming to the table. And then you've got Skin and Earth, which is kind of the same thing in a different direction, where it's just like these 3 elements. And this album is like, this holds itself easily against any pop or otherwise act that exists in the world, hands down.
Yeah. Oh, I would definitely say so. I will say that I think we're thinking of it a little bit differently, but I would definitely still say that I think Little Machines is her most mature album. But I think I'm approaching it. If you were to just ask me that and say like, what's Little Light's most mature album, I would definitely say Little Machines, because to me, Little Machines is an album that like, if I knew someone that didn't like pop music, I could sit them down with Little Machines and be like, listen to this. There is something deeper going on here that you, a music person that just scoffs at pop music, would be able to appreciate.
Yeah, you could use Little Machines to trick somebody into liking pop music.
Right. Whereas I don't feel like that this is that same thing. Like, this is a lot more surface level, like, but it's the surface level in the way I like. Because I always say that what I really want when I'm listening to music for the first time is I want to love it immediately. And there's some music that you can't love immediately. You have to listen to it a lot for you to like get the meaning, to understand why the music feels the way it does and why it works together. And it takes repeated listens to truly get it. But
Yeah.
then there's music that can seem surface and like shallow, but like the moment you listen to it, it's like, this sounds cool. This sounds awesome. This is exactly what I want. And that is what every song on this was, with the exception of maybe the first song. Like, I feel
Sure.
like a lot of the songs, they start right away, and then the song doesn't really deviate too much from that. There was a lot of the songs on here that had just 2 parts instead of the 3, but I'm okay with it because she did have lots of bridges, but the bridges were usually just sort of a stripping down of the chorus and then ramping the chorus back up, rather than having like a full third part of the song in there.
Sure. Yeah.
But because she usually started the songs off with the verse, then a chorus, then a verse, then a chorus, then breaking down the chorus and building the chorus back up. I mean, that's a very common structure for a song. But I never felt like any of the songs were too short. Not a single one of them. Maybe,
which is interesting because
maybe
there are
the
a couple
last
that
song.
would technically fall short on your law
Oh.
of how long songs should be.
Well, I mean, yes, definitely. If a song feels short, though, to me, it's because there wasn't enough there to feel complete.
Yeah.
Whereas I do feel like, I don't know how, I haven't looked at the lengths of the songs. I guess I can do that right now. Oh, man, there is Money in the Bag is only 2 minutes and 44 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And Real
I think
Thing
Prodigal is even shorter.
Real Thing is only 3:02. Yeah, well, Prodigal Daughter is 2:55.
Oh, okay. I had him flipped.
Yeah. So yeah, there are some shorter ones. But I do not feel like those songs were too short because they satisfied me.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Money in the Bag, too, is like even with its super short duration, the last bit of that song, like she gave it so much tail in terms of like, here's just the rest, here's just music, here's
Right.
just music. And the ultimate, like, the quickest way to know how short, if a song is too short, is like,
Exactly.
shut
Yes.
down, done. And
Yeah.
she gave that, even though it's really short up front, she still gave it that room to breathe and feel like a complete song.
Yeah, there were several songs, and I even commented on one of the songs, I don't remember which track, where at the end they finished the chorus, and then the chorus just went through and played instrumentally again, but allowing the instrumentalists to kind of go through and just do some stuff. Which again, to me, that's the thing that shocks me the most about this album: the amount of things that we were hearing that were performed as opposed to programmed. And I don't say that negatively. Like, I am someone who loves, like, recently I've been going back through and listening to VNV Nation, their whole
Yes,
their
very
catalog. There's probably very few things on the VNV Nation albums that are, like, performed. Now,
Right.
I know that that's maybe a bad example, but when you listen to a VNV Nation song, it's basically just a drum beat and then some sort of like a synth-based thing that was programmed and using knobs rather than playing something on a keyboard. And that's like a core of the song. Whereas this, there were so many things happening, but the thing that surprised me the most with what was happening was the amount of guitar that was played and the amount of electric piano that was played. And it wasn't necessarily a Rhodes piano like you would hear in a lot of blues music or like the True Blood style stuff that we like. It was just like a straight up electric piano sound, and it sounded fantastic in context with the music. It really worked well. And it's tough when you do performing stuff like that, when you have such like a tight grooving drum beat with like just droning low frequency, which is what a lot of the bass was in this album. There were a few times where all of a sudden there was a real bass guitar playing, and that was really special when that happened because probably for 30% of the album it was a real bass playing, and that's really cool. I wouldn't expect a percentage that high on a Lights album. And at the same time, then, like I said, when the guitars came in, there were all sorts of layers of guitars, and not necessarily a guitar player playing a guitar part, more like using the guitar to play a very simple, repetitive part or something that a guitar player wouldn't necessarily want to play live.
Right, using a guitar the way that you would use an electronic element.
Yes.
Just having
treating
loops,
it like
taking...
like you're like almost like a sound effect.
Yeah, exactly. And because you had mentioned earlier there was reverb on something, but that it was used much more, like I think it might have been one of the hi-hats had a specific reverb on it that it was like, it's not a room reverb, it's just a reverb for a certain effect.
Yes.
And that's a big designation that happens in sound design all the time, where it's like, is this reverb for the effect of creating a space, or is it for the effect of this is an element of what makes the design sound the way that it does in a vacuum? And that's a perfect example of that. And I forgot what you said and why.
There was a lot of that on this album because you know
yes.
that,
Oh yeah, because you had mentioned once years ago when we were talking about Inter-Party System how they were an electronic band that made music as if they were a rock band. And you could flip that narrative and say using the electric guitar with the simplicity and sort of like the loop and sample style that she did here is kind of the opposite direction, where you're using rock elements to create something that would be produced more in an electronic way.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And I think the interesting thing, one thing I want to mention is that you know that I do not like it when stuff is drenched in reverb. Like I am not a fan of like the like, I don't even know what that style of music is called, but I really hate it. when it's just like sparkly the whole time and the vocals just are like sound like they're 100% wet or like 80 to 100% wet as opposed to
like
having
a really
any dry.
like just like a really ethereal. I've heard the term shoegaze used for a lot of
I've heard
music,
that as well, but I don't know if that
never known what that was. And
works
every
with
time I heard something that I thought would count as that, I've asked somebody and they've been like, no, this is not that at all. And it's like, what the
but I thought the exact same thing. And but this album though had reverb all over the place. But like we were just saying, like there was a lot of reverb used to the maximum effect for whether it was going, because like the few parts where it did sound like a rock band, I think one of the reasons for that is because of the effects that they were using on the sounds that we heard. But like on the like more hip hop sounding songs at the beginning of the album, the drums were very dry. And I kept mentioning the hi-hat like the first half of the album and really throughout the whole album. The hi-hat was like chef's kiss the entire album from front to back, because when you're doing drums, the thing that makes something sound hip hop is the hi-hat has to be played a very specific way to make you feel that sort of like groove, right? That groove that makes you want to do this rather than do this, you know?
Sure.
There's like a very different feeling to like when you're feeling something and you're grooving with it, as opposed to just like shouting anthemic, like, you know, or metal, you know, but like there's like a feeling to it. And the hi-hat was performed immaculately the entire time. It was mixed perfectly. There was a lot of sidechain compression on this album. So like when the kick would hit, other things would dip in volume, but it was there. And because the songs were what they were, pulling their influence from that sort of hip hop with the drum sound and everything, your ear doesn't go, hold on a second, why are there things dipping out? Because it was noticeable. It was like actually noticeable in some of the songs. A couple of
times, yeah, for sure.
But I think that's great because it works with the style of what was happening musically. And so that was all perfect. But the amount of variety of things that went into this, like you and I have talked about it before, people who are electronic musicians who all of a sudden have like something that feels like rock in their songs, like that is so hard. It is so hard to do that and balance it. And to have this whole, you can have a whole electronic song that's like perfect and pristine because every single sound you're hearing was created synthetically. There is no human error. Everything is crystal clear. There's no human element to it. So everything is perfect. And then to have the next song have rock elements in it, like real drum kit or something, to have those things exist on the same album and sound like they work together is very, very hard to do. And and I'm not saying like one song was electronic and one song wasn't, because every song on the album had elements of both things mixed in there. And that is really, really hard. Like the mixing on this album is fantastic because there was a lot of things they were doing that would be really hard to balance. You know, I didn't even mention it all, but like a lot of the guitars had low pass filters on them. Like there was nothing sparkly happening in the mix whatsoever, really, except for her vocals and maybe some of the drums. And other than that, the sparkle was non-existent for the most part.
Sure.
You know, that high frequency, those higher frequencies. And
But very importantly, does not sound like the Diablo Swing Orchestra album.
No, it didn't sound overly muddy at all. 100,000%. But it wasn't muddy. And that's the other thing. The low frequencies were handled with care. I told you last year when I listened to that Casey Musgraves album that I think it was probably the best subsonic frequency handling I've ever heard on an album, because it is just immaculate the entire time. This was maybe close to that level, but they were using the bass a lot differently. The sub frequencies you were hearing were like these all-encompassing, like, okay, the chorus kicks in, so we're going to make the song feel thick by adding a lot of like sub frequencies to it. And they did that in such a way that it didn't muddy or cloud up any of the mid-range frequencies. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe one of the reasons for that is because there isn't a ton of mid-range frequencies in the mixes. There definitely were. And the one thing we haven't even mentioned yet is the return of the synths, Chris. I was hoping, but all the synths were perfect. The moments where there was bass on the album, a lot of it was synth bass, and the synth bass songs, the synth bass patches, the sounds ranged from very like metallic sounding 80s synths to very round, like something Taylor Swift or something could use in one of her songs that has like a throwback 80s song. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of variety of the synths used, which I mean, of course, but the synth basses really stood out to me. Lead synth stuff, there wasn't a lot. I will say that a lot of the lead stuff was handled in the guitars, and some of it was guitar with synth overdubbing, and some of it was guitar that was so affected it could have been a synth. Which, for all we know, it was like a distorted synth and not a guitar. But usually, I think you and I are pretty good at telling when something's a synth or something's a guitar. Sure. Though, for certainly, you could trick us very easily.
Yeah, happy to be proven wrong.
No, 100%. Yeah, I have no problem with the guitar. I have no problem with synth, and I love it when there's distorted synth stuff. There was that one song that had the guitar. I think it was the one you mentioned. It might have been Jaws. I think it was Jaws, the half-tempo chorus, where it kicked in right away. I think it was Jaws. I could be wrong. It kicked in, and it was half-tempo, I think. And the first like downbeat of the chorus, there was like a chunky sort of like guitar sound, and then it didn't happen again the whole rest of the song till the next time it got to the first downbeat of the chorus again. Are you there, Chris? I lost you. You're really low quality again.
All right, hold on. Yeah.
So anyway, I love it. I think that it's great. I will say again, I think that the swearing on the album is something that is kind of a little bit like, I wish she didn't do that, only because it's like, and I know a lot of people don't care about it. And like, I totally get that. But like, I would like my mom, for example, who is very strict, she's been able to listen to every other album in this stack, And she could still listen to this, but I'd have to skip the songs.
What is going to happen to her, though, if she hears it?
She just doesn't. It makes her uncomfortable. Well, honestly, and with my mom, not to get into this whole thing, but like,
sure, I just like it. I mean, she's got to be 60-something, like
64. But with my mom, this is how she is, Chris. If she is watching a movie, right, and Brad Pitt's in the movie, right? Mm-hmm. And Brad Pitt is a bad guy in the movie. My mom will not like Brad Pitt ever again because he did something bad in a movie. Man. And for the rest of the time, she'll just be like, I just don't like Brad Pitt. And like, she does it in wrestling all the time. Any of the wrestlers who are bad guys, which in wrestling, it's one of the most amazing, like, whatever, don't need to get into it. But they're in wrestling.
We don't need 45 minutes on wrestling.
Wrestling is one of the awesome places on earth where you can be a good guy and then switch to being a bad guy and then switch to back to being a good guy. And like for her, when someone becomes a bad guy, she doesn't like them. Again, ever. No matter what they do. So like if my mom heard this album and she got to this song where their swear words were on it, she'd be like, I don't like lights. Whereas before, she's probably okay. Yeah, I know.
That's really unfortunate.
But, it's okay. And, like, to me, honestly, like, I've always been on a proponent of there are other words you can use, so there's no reason to even try to, like, risk offending someone. But at the same time, like, like I said, it definitely didn't ruin anything for me. It just, the Jaws song, I'm really going to have to try to, I'm going to have to edit that when we listen to this to put it up there. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think overall, this album is probably going to end up being my favorite Lights album, I think.
I kind of suspected that was the case because I kind of think so for myself too. Like it is the whole package.
Do you think that the pandemic affected her? Like in terms of like, do you think it affected this album at all?
I don't see how it couldn't. I don't.
Right.
It's kind of the thing where it's like it's going to be impossible to know.
Yeah.
Other than asking her, but I don't know. I feel like there's not one single person who wasn't changed or affected in some way by the fact that at the very, very least, we were all relegated strictly to our homes for like 3 to 6 months, depending on whatever you want to put into the equation.
Right.
And people came up with all kinds of shit that they did as a result of that.
Right.
Like,
right. And I think
everybody on Earth has a sourdough kit now, and they'll never use it again.
And everyone's got a YouTube channel where they react to stuff. What those idiots. But you're right. I think that, lyrically, I think that there's it's interesting to break down the lyrics because I did, like I said, look at them beforehand.
Well, the thing about the album, to me, lyrically, especially with Prodigal Daughter, is the fact that, like, the idea that she's back. Like, I'm back. From what?
Right. Everyone was gone the same time you were.
Right. Well, I mean, but this is technically, we're looking at 5 years between these two albums.
That's true.
That's an amount of time.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe there's something in the lyrics somewhere or an interview or wherever else in the world where she talks about where she was and why. And, maybe that has a much more profound effect on how this album sounds than the pandemic ever did.
It could even be just a place where she was mentally rather even necessarily than anything else. Because that was what I noticed looking at the lyrics. Like there was a lot of force and power behind a lot of the lyrics in some of the songs. But then other ones were just like The Money in the Bag is like totally just like a playful song. Like I don't think that there's any like deeper meaning to that. I think it's just
could
like
be metaphorical for sure.
It could be, but I don't necessarily think it had to be. I think it's just
it doesn't have to be.
It's just a cool song about robbing a bank or whatever, like, which is awesome. And
because you had mentioned too, like with Skin and Earth, and how much like she had mentioned the deadlines of the art, and you even just talking about there's so much involved in this album. Maybe there was a really heavy burnout component after that album.
I wondered that too. Yeah.
And that she, now that she's finally back, like she feels like she's back. She's able to work and put that kind of effort back into music the way that she wants to without it feeling like hellish.
Right. And even knows who knows too, like I even mentioned earlier, like her daughter would be 10 years old now. Right. So that's probably a lot easier to balance your life with a 10-year-old than it would be with the 5-year-old.
Absolutely.
5 years
more
ago.
Autonomy from that, which is really great.
Right. And I don't know anything about her like relationship, like if she's married to the guy that like does music with her or anything. That is how it is a lot of the times with artists like this.
She's married to the lead singer of Bless the Fall, actually.
Oh. Well,
sure that's
you
true.
can look that up, but regardless, like, who I mean, I don't know, but I'm saying that could affect it as well. I think this album is like way better than Skin and Earth, in my opinion, which I think, I think Skin and Earth was her weakest album of her catalog.
I still think it was, which is not to say that it's a bad album.
No,
because all of her other albums are so strong in so many ways.
Yeah.
But,
even the
7
listening
is still the weakest number out of, 8, 9, and 10. So does that make it bad? Not at all.
Right. That's a great way to put it. So yeah, for sure. I think this is her best mastered album.
Mm-hmm. This is her most polished, modern, professional sounding album. Like,
well, I don't know.
What do you got?
I don't know if I would say that. Just because, like Little Machines, it just depends. See, the word you put in there that I would tend to agree with you is modern. You said modern album.
Sure. Okay.
Because to me, Little Machines, like I said earlier, you could take any human being on earth and be like, listen to this album. It's fantastic. But I could see where people wouldn't like this that much because they'd be like, oh, it's too hip hop. The beat's stupid.
It's got a sheen to it. It's got a professional sheen.
It does.
And, but none of this is negative,
No. And that sheen, the sheen that's there, to me, is what makes it special, that the elements that I was talking about, like the guitars and stuff, the fact that those elements are there on an album that was as produced as good as this is, with all that sheen that you're talking about, like not a lot of albums that would sound like this sonically would have those elements to them. And I think too, you can definitely feel her influence musically. Like, I mean, I'm sure she wrote all these songs and probably performed a lot of the stuff on the albums, on the songs, but like you can feel her, like the synth stuff and all these different things, and I even mentioned too, like the one song that was done by that Coco guy, number 10, like, her vocals sounded cleaner and better, like a better microphone was used on that song than any other songs on this album. So I'm not saying that it's like the most perfect, wonderful masterpiece thing that's ever been done ever. I think in that case, that album is still Little Machines. because to me that's like the height of her. To me, Little Machines is like a masterpiece on like a level above how I feel about it musically. Like it is something that's like, it's like a special album that goes beyond whether my personal feelings about it. Whereas this album was made more for me. Like this has all sorts of cool there's all sorts of cool synths, there's cool drum beats, the drums are fantastic the entire album. She has all these sort of quick, snappy vocal rhythms, which I love.
It's got a high budget feel.
It does, yes, it does. But also
not in a diluted Disneyfication kind of way.
No,
it's just like this is what this album feels like big time.
But it's also
this is the big time album.
It is, but it's also very different from the stuff that, like I mentioned, Lorde earlier, or even Taylor Swift, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like the last 2 or 3 albums Taylor Swift has done, which is now that like sort of folky, like acoustic guitar drenched in reverb thing that she's been doing recently. If you go back a couple albums and you think about her huge smash hit songs that were just like enormous, a lot of those songs were basically just a drum beat and vocals, right? Bad Blood is basically just drums and vocals. Think about Lorde, right? Lorde, basically just a drum beat and vocals. Billie Eilish, a drum beat, low frequencies and vocals. That is sort of the way. Halsey, another great example, same thing. This is much closer to something like, well, I don't necessarily closer, but like there's a lot more elements to this that set it apart from those things.
Right.
In complexity of the drumming, the complexity of the guitar playing, which you could probably listen to an entire Halsey album and there's not one single guitar, you know, on the whole album. Whereas this had multiple guitar parts in each individual song, and they were all tasty, they were all performed, there were bends, there were licks, there were human elements to this that I think that is what makes this album special. And so saying that it's like has this like modern pop sheen over it is true because the production's so fantastic, but I think it's much better. And I think you were saying that too. It's better than a lot of that stuff.
I was thinking to myself, would this be something that a more cynical person would refer to as being a sellout album? And at first I thought that was true, but now I think if it were to go in the direction that you're outlining with the more popular songs that have those minimalist elements and still are as huge as they are, that would probably drive it more in that direction.
Which that's what I felt she was trying to do with Skin and Earth.
Sure, okay.
Much more minimalistic arrangements with just a big drum beat and then her singing and all the like pitch shifted vocals and stuff. But
yeah, but I am not a fan of the term sellout because it's too negative and it's very stupid, and it aims to lower the ceiling and hinder any artist's ability to be successful and use a bottomless well of money to make anything that they would ever truly want to make. And so to give that same kind of professional context without the negativity involved, like this feels, there's a way that I was going to try to compare it to movies where like you have a certain director or someone who has like early films that are really good. Like I keep wanting to go to Christopher Nolan, even though his movies have always kind of been what they are, but like Memento versus Interstellar, like you're still looking at the results of Christopher Nolan, but one of them has a depth to it, an ability to be anything that he wants it to be without limitation because of how big he's gotten and how much success is involved and what the budget looks like. Right. And this album kind of feels like that for me with her as the first true album of her being able to, if I want this thing, I will have it, and I will involve anyone who needs to be involved to make it be as good as it can be.
Right. That's a great way to put it. Very little limitations in terms of what was available to her. You know, her color palette was as wide as possible. But I also think, too, that it's interesting to point out kind of what we're talking about, the production and stuff, and the sheen that's on it. Like, I often think of albums as being like, there's two ways you can approach making an album in terms of the character of the album as a whole. And one of those ways is to go into the studio and perform the songs. And so everything is recorded and everything is captured in such a way that it sounds like the album was performed and it was an accurate representation of what the songs were meant to be from the beginning. But the other way is when you go into the studio and you craft the songs in the studio and you intentionally give all of the sounds a maybe not necessarily uniform across the production, but the production elements that you're using while recording and the distortions and the reverbs and everything, those sounds and those decisions are what give the album its character at the end of the day. Now, some like Zach Brown Band to me is like the perfect example. And I've tried to show people Zach Brown Band before, and they can appreciate the songwriting, but they say that the songs don't sound like they have any character. And it's because the guitar sounds just like a guitar, and the drums sound just like drums, and the vocals sound just like vocals. And that can still be a fantastic masterpiece of a mix. But when you listen to something like the Black Keys, there's all this distortion. There's all this like looseness to everything. There are mistakes left in. There is background noise. There's room tone. Their microphones are placed further back than just like an inch away from something. And all those decisions give the album the character that it has. So in regards to this album, I think it's interesting because to me, the thing that gives this album the most character, the character that it has, is the sounds that they chose to put in. Not necessarily any effects that were used, although we talked about the reverb a lot. I do think the reverb was perfect and utilized perfectly. But the fact that the drums are so massive, but not overly powerful, but then a lot of the drum beats are meant to have like a hip hop feel, and I keep saying that, but it's true, and it's my favorite part of the album. And so like choosing that specific kick with that specific snare with that specific hi-hat sound gave that song its character rather than it being the performances, if that makes sense. So this album, like all of her albums, because she's an electronic artist and she knows how to go into the studio and craft a song on her computer without just worrying about a performing aspect of it. That's where the character of this album comes in, and I feel like I love it. I love the character of the album overall. I know I kind of got into the weeds there a little bit and muddy with my explanation of what I was talking about, but so yeah, I think I feel fantastic. I cannot wait to listen to this album again.
This is going to be one to beat in terms of the top 12 for the year.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because we also have Birthday Massacre that I have right up here. Fantastic album that was, up until probably this point, my favorite album of the year, I think.
Hell yeah.
However, Chris, just earlier today, I listened for the very first time all the way through that Joywave album, Cleanse.
Oh yeah, it's very good.
I think that album might be my number one of the year, even after having listened to this. But
April.
I need to listen to this more. Yes. And speaking of that, I also have coming up on my channel, Port Noir has a new album.
Yep. That's going to be good.
That I just got in the mail.
What if we get that Convey album this year?
Well, we better get it this year.
I mean, we absolutely should. We're getting singles at the end of last year. Like, there's no reason why not. But it's going to be a tough year. That,
and also, you know what comes out tomorrow? You know what comes out tomorrow as of recording this? Brand new, the Crystal Method album. And their last album,
that was coming.
If you recall, their last album was their best album. And so this album could be fantastic.
Which album? Let's see, was the last one?
It was the Trip Home, I think it was called.
Okay.
Unless that's their new album. And
their new album is called The Trip Out, and I'm seeing it. I can listen to it right now.
Oh, maybe it came out just today.
It might be. Either way, I see it.
Well, today's Thursday.
Albums. No. Yeah, The Trip Home, 2018. Yeah. I need to listen to that more. I love Divided by Night and Legion of Boom so much.
I like Divided by Night as well, but that Trip to Home or Trip from Home or whatever.
Trip Home. Yeah, Trip Home, and really then this one's Trip Back.
Well, we got that.
I really like this. I was going to tell you also, when you were talking about what we think PEP Acoustic is going to be like, are you familiar? I'm sure you know Phases by Icy Stars, yeah?
Their album Phases?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I consider that to be one of the best acoustic albums of all time. Just because of how intricate and heavy and complex all of their music is. They made the acoustic versions that they made for that album there's just so much going on, so many different types of elements, different types of music, the styles out of control. It's not just and guitar, they really went after it in terms of design and style. And I would love to see this be like that.
Oh, I would See, that's the thing, though, because she just spent so long crafting this album, and like we've just been saying for the last 45 minutes, there is a lot to this album. So
yeah, and that's interesting because also her acoustic albums do not historically hold that same energy. She does a very intentional, like sleepy time lo-fi kind of style with it.
Well, yes. But what I was going to say though is like there's a lot going on here, and so she may want to do the acoustic versions of this much more stripped down, like she did the Skin and Earth one or Siberia, as opposed to Midnight Machines, which to me Midnight Machines is like full album. Midnight Machines is a full produced front to back. Every song has every element to it that you would expect a full produced song to have. That is my favorite, like candlelight version or whatever acoustic version of any. I mean, I think that is one of the great. That is such a fantastic album, and if it had more than 7 songs on it, it would probably be one of my favorite albums of all time.
Yeah, if it was a full album, like
right.
12 songs separate from the existence of Little Machines, like what an album!
And I keep waiting for her to kind of merge the two things together, and have an like. Why wasn't there an acoustic song on this album? Because it probably wouldn't have worked, with everything that was going on.
Yep.
They could have. There's no reason she couldn't have used acoustic instruments in the album, like an acoustic guitar. But as far as I know, we didn't really hear any acoustic guitar. Maybe a little bit of strumming here and there. But
do we ever? Outside of the acoustic albums themselves?
No.
No, yeah, we never
because
do.
she uses synths for that effect. She just, rather than playing something on the guitar, like standing at an open mic night playing the guitar, she has synths that are either not necessarily doing like arpeggiated stuff, but just like holding out a chord and having that be the atmosphere and then sing over it, like with Portal and stuff. So yeah, but I don't know. I'm just excited for however she does whatever she does next.
Anything she makes happen.
Yeah. No, but what I was going to say, though, she's probably going to be touring now a lot.
Yep.
And she just put all this effort into making this album, so it would make sense to me if she wants to have this next acoustic thing, whether she releases it next year or 2 years from now or whatever.
I agree.
Be a lot more stripped back. So,
but
okay.
I mean, what are you going to say? Because I was going to wrap it up.
I was too. I was going to say, before we wrap up, though, there's just a couple other things I wanted to say. First of all, I was going to do this at the beginning of the video, but I'll just do it now. If anyone's watching this whole thing, thank you. You're awesome.
Yeah. But please, who are you? Why?
Along with Port Noir, I also have the Bloodywood album Rack Shack, which came out in February.
Yeah, that's on there.
I've had ordered since before it came out, but the stupid CD doesn't come out until April 8th, and I should be getting it in the mail either today or tomorrow, though it didn't come today, so hopefully tomorrow. But anyway, on my channel, I'll be doing reactions to that and the Port Noir. I also want to just shout out, because recently I've been discovering a lot of really fantastic music, and so I just want to shout out to everybody. I want to do this throughout the year as I encounter cool stuff. The Joywave album Cleanse is fantastic. We just mentioned it here. Good. I honestly think it's one of the best. Like it's fantastic. It's going to be
whatever
on my
you
list.
Call it. I don't even know what to call that style, but
no
it is
clue.
Exactly what it is.
But it's very reminiscent of a lot of things. A lot of 80s influence in there. I love it. It reminds me a lot of Hertz. For me personally, and which is a band that I love. Then also I found a band called Dead Sarah that if you're listening to, that you should check out. You, Chris, should check this out. It's kind of like a pop punky thing. It's produced fantastically well. There's like 3 or 4 songs on the album that are like really simple songs, but have this really heavy like riff to it that's really simple, but really great. Recommend that. Tiger Cub, I think, is the name of the Tiger Cub. Tiger Cub has an album that just came out recently. Really different than what you would expect it to sound like. Just start on track 1 and you'll be blown away with that one. And then I also have to mention the album. It's the artist is technically listed as Marsden and I should have and Marsden and Riordan, I think. Marsden and Richardson. Sorry, I wrote it really bad in my handwriting. Marsden and Richardson. It is an album that was made by the duo Marsden and Richardson, who I think play strings. I could be wrong, but I think it's like the name of sort of like a string quartet thing. They made an album with Band of Skulls.
Ooh.
And Band of Skulls has been working on a bunch of like hip hop music with this like hip hop artist, and I think that they have a whole album coming out later this year. Band of Skulls do, but this Marsden and Richardson album, it's just called Marsden and Richardson. It is fantastic. It is like 70s Fleetwood Mac. Every song has strings. It is produced beyond the realms of production. It sounds Everything is crisp and clear. The drums are fantastic. Everything about the album is fantastic. Please, everyone, look that up. And then
Go ahead.
Well, I just have a couple other things I wanted to mention. One thing. This is something that I was going to do at the very beginning of the video, and I forgot to do it. And the train moved on the tracks, and I couldn't do it. Last night, I listened to an album for the first time that I have never heard in my life. That you're going to laugh, but I'm going to make you go listen to this, Chris, and everybody watching this. Go listen to this album, and you tell me that this is not one of the highest quality produced albums in the history of music. You listen to this album and tell me that track 3 doesn't have the greatest sounding kick drum of all time. I am talking about Enrique Iglesias, Escape. I am not joking, Chris.
What year?
2001.
I was going to guess 02.
2001. This is Escape and Hero. Everybody knows
insane.
Those songs. Hero?
Those statements about here is any album from 2001, and it has the best production of all time.
Dude.
Like that already is bananas. That's coconuts.
It is insane how fantastic this album sounds. How it is insane. The song Hero, which everyone knows, and probably everyone is rolling their eyes right now. Put on your headphones, pull your head out of your ass, and go listen to that song and pay attention to the quality, the sonic quality of that song. It will blow you away. I honestly think it may be the best sounding thing I have ever heard.
Well, and here's a great thing about that too, because that time, I mean, for me especially, this song, this album, Enrique Iglesias, does not exist outside of FM radio.
Sure, right.
And so it's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean it's good? That's ridiculous. It's just, but yeah. I mean, historically, anything listened to on FM radio is garbage. It is going to be garbage. And any place where you would have heard a song on the radio, where are you doing? You don't sit with your nicest equipment on the couch and listen to a song via FM radio.
No.
So it's like, where am I hearing it? I'm hearing it in somebody's car. It's on over the speakers at the mall. It's on the speakers at
100%.
work. Like, it's always going to be some mess. And so the idea that you have that this is an absurd thing, that it could be very good, it's like, yeah, well, I mean, where were you in 2001, 2002?
Yeah.
I was 15. What the hell do I know about Enrique Iglesias?
And I was wondering, I was going to look it up, like, if this album didn't win Grammys, it is a crying shame. It should have won Album of the Year. It should have won anything for production. So just everyone, homework, go listen to Enrique Iglesias. The album is called Escape. It is fantastic. Every single song on the album is good. Now, this is a time when NSYNC was like, NSYNC, Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys were the most popular thing happening in music. Enrique Iglesias, right up there. If you would have said,
was killing it.
If you would have, but the difference is, even though, as much as I love NSYNC, which I really do, I can sing you almost every one of their songs.
I have a Backstreet Boys very similar thing.
As much as I love NSYNC. But Enrique Iglesias, I would have laughed at you, just like you were saying. I would have laughed at you if you told me to go listen to this. But honestly, I was listening to this last night, Chris.
How did this happen to you?
Why did I listen to it? You mean?
How did you get to a point where this album you would have laughed about went into your head and changed your mind?
Well, because for the last, like, probably, this is going to sound stupid, but for the last, like, 10 years, probably, every now and then I'll be sitting and I'll think, you can run, you can hide, but you can't escape my love. And I think, I liked that song at the time. And I think I should listen to that album, and just listen to it and see. And I was down in my basement here, where, for those of you watching who don't know, I have probably like 3,000 to 4,000 CDs that I have. I have an enormous CD collection. I didn't know that number. That's crazy. Yeah, I have an enormous CD collection. And for the last several years, since you can't buy CDs anymore, whenever I go anywhere to like Goodwill or garage sales or whatever, if I find a CD that is even remotely interesting at all, or if it looks so bad, I think it'd be entertaining, I just buy it. I buy them as much as I can. And so I was down here looking for a different CD, actually. Do you remember when we were in high school, that song, La La, the kisses of the sun, with sweet identity, I don't know what to say. It goes around the world, just na 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 na. Na 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 na.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm,
right?
Yep.
I've always loved that song because it sounds so stupidly like Blue. I'm Blue Abadiba Abadai. Which I love. Eiffel 65, great. The first CD I ever bought.
Great.
First CD I ever bought was Eiffel 65's Europop album.
What a mess.
But there's so I was looking at for years. I've been meaning to like look up online the artist who sings "Around the World," la 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 la. And I looked it up and I saw the picture of the album and I was like, I am 90% sure that I have bought that over the last few years because I thought it would be really stupid. Because it's like these 3 people in like space outfits on the front of this album. It looks terrible. And so I came down here and I was looking through all my CDs that I have that I just kind of consider garbage CDs that I have just like on a shelf. And I saw this and I was like, I didn't know I owned this. I was like,
awesome.
I didn't even know I had this. And so last night, I could talk forever. I was working on a song down here last night in my basement and I thought it was 11 o'clock and I was like, okay, time to go to bed. You know, I got to get up. We got to record this video today. So I'm like, I'm going to go to bed, get a good night's rest. I looked at the clock and it was 1:06 and that does not happen to me ever. But I was having so much fun working on music. And so I was like, okay, I got to go to bed. So I went upstairs and I laid down and I was like, I am not tired at all. So I just reached up and I grabbed a CD off the bedboard and this was up there. I put that there to listen to it at some point. And it was dark, so I couldn't even see what it was. And so I just put it in. And
what a fun game that is.
And I was just like, this sounds fantastic. And the second song was great. The third song was great. The fourth song was great. The fifth song was great.
How long did it take before you knew it was Enrique?
Oh, I knew immediately because Escape was the first song. Escape was the first song. But when you hear it, when you actually sit and listen to it, you'll be like, there is no reason this kick should sound as good as it does.
Right.
There is no reason his vocals are as low in the song as they are. Because his vocal, for it being like a pop song, you're thinking of it as like, it's Enrique Iglesias, it's a pop song.
Yeah.
And also, there is flamenco acoustic guitar across the entire album that I think he probably played.
I believe it.
So like there's this amazing Spanish guitar. There's fantastic production. I really seriously think track 3 on Enrique Iglesias' album Escape has the best sounding kick drum I have ever heard in my life on any song, any genre ever. It's fantastic.
I'm going to listen to it. I was going to say one thing that's really fascinating about like 90s music, early 2000s music is how many songs we got, and then you go listen to like the album that song is from, and it's either a trillion miles away from anything that was ever on the radio.
Yes.
Sugar Ray is a perfect example of this.
Yep.
And like, I know, like you go listen to it and you're like, wow, this is all great because I don't know, there's this idea that one-hit wonders exist, that they had one good song, and that the album is either just that song 10 times or is that song and then just complete filth. Total trash, not even worth hearing. And it's so often that that's not true. Like, I know people who are huge Aqua fans.
Yeah. Dude, like, Smash Mouth.
Don't say that. Don't say it.
Their albums are good. They're good.
The album is Walking on the Sun, the same album as...
Nope. All-Star?
Okay.
No. Walking on the Sun is the one where the beer goggles one or whatever it is.
Yeah, I listened to that album a lot when it came out. Like,
the album with All Star, which is it's got like a space theme or whatever. Dude, I'm going home. There's so many good songs on that album. Dude.
Oh man, we can do this the rest of our lives.
Okay,
so let's wrap this up.
So instead. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Like I said, I've got Port Noir and Bloodywood coming up.
Yep.
And Black Keys and Crystal Method. My goodness, all of a sudden I'm busy.